evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, and a very good morning to each and every one of you. And what a show we've got for you this afternoon. It's me, Stevie B. It's the Hive here at Chorley Hospital Radio. I am sorry there's no music to accompany us today for the intro because my computer's playing silly beggars with us. I don't know what's going on, but it's just not playing ball today. So with no music whatsoever, apart from our very special guest, Mr. Mark Dowding. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Stephen. How are you?
I'm not too bad.
Not too bad, apart from the glitches.
apart from the glitches, yeah. I made sure everything was working correctly, and then when it came down to it last night, I needed to do an update, and for some strange reason, it's not playing now. So there we are. Never mind. We will get things sorted, and hopefully we'll be back next week. Fully functional. Maybe next year, depending on how things go. Right, so Mark Dowding is a folk singer.
I am, yes.
And you have, I believe, a folk group.
We have a folk club, if that's
folk club, that's the word.
About. Yeah. We have that on a Monday night at the Red Lion at Newborough, which is next door to Parbold. And we've been running that for... what is it now, 2020? It's about 22 years, I think, something like that, getting on that way. I haven't been running it all the time, but me and my other half have probably done it for the best part of 24 years, not 24, 20, about 18 years, something like that, which seems a long time ago now. And we go there on a Monday. We have, whoever wants to come along can come along. They can do... Our motto is anything goes, so we don't sort of say you've got to sing this particular style of song. We get people who come and do traditional folk songs, or songs that have been written fairly recently, or songs they've written themselves, or we get pop songs even. We get somebody singing, somebody will throw a challenge out.
Yeah.
And we'll have a bit of Hawkwind.
Nice.
Somebody... I think it was my missus. She was in one of those driving things for naughty boys and girls, and she was sat next to somebody, and he said, I'm the bass player or the drummer, whoever it was, out of Hawkwind. So she was talking to him all afternoon.
Brilliant.
And then she mentioned this at the club and said, we don't get Hawkwind in here. And somebody said, well, we can do. And the week after, he came along and did whatever it was that Hawkwind was famous for. So we get about 20 to 25 people in generally. Before COVID, we were getting 25 to 30 in. So, and since then we've lost a few just because they haven't come back. But we've gained a few as well. So swings and roundabouts really. So we enjoy ourselves.
So is it open if it's open for sort of like what's the word I'm looking for? Spectators?
Yes, anyone can come.
Anyone can come.
We welcome listeners, people in the audience as well. So it's not just people who do something. People can come and have a listen as well. And when we do get maybe 9 or 10 people just coming to listen.
And is that every Monday?
Every Monday, apart from bank holidays.
Right.
And it is running tonight, but I won't be there because I've got a gig at Leigh Cricket Club, which is where they have their folk club. So I'll be there tonight.
So, and what time is that?
Ours starts at 8:15.
Right.
And we go on till round about 11. Depends how many are in for singing and how far we get round. But we like to finish about 11 o'clock.
Unfortunately, I can't hit those nights.
No,
as you can tell.
That's always the case, isn't it?
I'm primarily engaged with Andy's Man Club on a Monday evening.
Yeah.
I may talk a little bit about that later on, just in case you don't know about it. So you had picked some music
yes.
to bring. Unfortunately, we can't play any.
Right.
But we can talk about it.
We can.
So that's
I've
not
got
the
my
problem.
guitar as well, so I can sing a few songs if you want.
Your threats don't scare me.
I've got my thumb pick ready.
Oh, goody gumdrops. Well, I'll tell you what. No time like the present. Would you like to do something?
I'll do something for you.
Just to give our listener an idea of.
I'll do the first song really that I learnt, which I always say it's not the first song I learnt. The first song I learnt probably went something like Andy Pandy's coming to play. La, 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 la. I'm showing my age there. And then the kids' programs in those days were brilliant because they all had songs in them you could sing along with. the Wooden Tops, and Bill and Ben. Bill and Ben, Bill and Ben. The bloke who did that was Peter Hawkins, who also went on to do the Daleks, the voice of the Daleks in Doctor Who. So he was a great impersonator, I suppose. He did all sorts of voices for things. Captain Pugwash, he did it.
Yeah. Mentioning Bill and Ben, though, have you heard the old joke of Bill and Ben? Bill said to Bill and Ben in the bath. Ben went. Ben said, "If that smells, you're out of here."
I know another joke as well. Bill and Ben are in a pub.
Yeah.
Bill says, "Flubba-dub-dub-dub-dub," and Ben says, "No, I get these. That you're drunk." This is the first song I ever learnt on guitar. I'll qualify it that way. And my dad's mate, we worked with, he would live in Carlisle, and he used to come down to where we lived in Parbold, and they both went down to King's Cross Station because they were working on the railway. Tony had a guitar with him, which he took down with him, and my sister was interested in it, and so was I to some degree. And Tony showed my sister the chords and things for this song. And then my sister wanted a guitar for Christmas, so I wanted a guitar for Christmas. It wasn't this one, it was another one. But this is the song, you probably know it. Have you seen the old man in the clothes down the market, kicking up the papers with his worn out shoes? In his eyes you'll see no pride, and held loosely at his side yesterday's papers telling yesterday's news. So how can you tell me you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand, I'll lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something to make you change your mind. Have you seen the old girl who walks the streets of London? Dirt in her hair and her clothes in rags. She's no time for talking, she just keeps right on walking, carrying her home into carrier bags. So how can you tell me you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Well, let me take you by the hand, I'll lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something to make you change your mind. And in the all-night cafe at 11:15, same old man sitting there on his own, looking at the world over the rim of his teacup. Each tea lasts an hour, then he wanders home alone. So how can you tell me you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Well, let me take you by the hand, I'll lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something to make you change your mind. Have you seen the old man outside the Seaman's Mission? Memories fading with the metal ribbons that he wears. And in our winter city the rain cries a little pity for one more forgotten hero in a world that doesn't care. So how can you tell me you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Well, let me take you by the hand, I'll lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something to make you change your mind. Streets of London, Ralph McTell.
Hmm.
He wrote that, I think it was 1965, and he was in Paris at the time, and he was going to write it about Paris. And then somebody said, a friend of his said, you want to write it about London? And he's glad he did, because he came to London and he saw what he wrote, you know.
Yeah.
And you go to London today and you still see what he wrote. There's nothing's changed.
No.
Sadly, you know, it's probably worse. I don't know.
The only thing that changes is the faces.
Yeah. So that was Streets of London. That was the first song I learned on the guitar. I didn't play it like that. It was very much a case of, you know, when you start to learn, it's like
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But then you started listening to records of Ralph McTell doing it, and picked up on the way, you know, played along with him, which is where I learned a lot of my songs. You just put them on the record player and play along, and if you make a mess, you make a mess and go back and start again. But yeah.
I mean, you don't learn by doing everything right the first
Of
time.
course you don't, no. You make mistakes and you learn from that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's the best way of learning,
It
making
is,
mistakes. But Ralph McTell went on to TV presenting.
He did
later
a
on.
couple of programmes, probably slightly after my time of watching these sort of programmes. I think one was Alphabet Zoo, if you remember that.
Yeah, there was Alphabet Zoo
Kenny the Kangaroo.
and Tickle on the Tum.
Tickle on the Tum, yes. Tickle was the village and Tum was the river, so it was Tickle on the River Tum. Don't ask me what it was about, because I never watched it.
Yeah, it's another kids' TV
But it is a
series.
kids programme, and he probably did some songs in there as
Yeah.
well, he's still performing. We saw him not too long ago, actually, and we saw him. I think it was the Brindley at Runcorn, and of course he can't get off the stage without doing Streets of London.
Yeah.
So it comes to the end, and we're thinking he hasn't done it yet, and he got this little girl on because his parents, her parents, had written in and said she can't get off to sleep without me singing Streets of London. So he invited her in, and her parents invited her in on the stage, gave her a microphone, and he's singing along. He's singing the song, but quietly, and you could hear her singing along with it. And at the end of when she'd finished doing the song, somebody brought a bunch of flowers in.
Oh, that's
Which
nice.
is very nice.
I must admit, I was the same with the Carpenters when I was
Were you?
when I
Yeah,
was young.
yeah.
I couldn't get to sleep if I didn't listen to the
Oh,
Carpenters.
right. Which was your favourite Carpenters song?
Oof,
Top of the World, Yesterday Once More,
probably Rainy Days and Mondays.
Rainy Days and Mondays. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
one I really do like.
I thought they were great with myself. You know,
Yeah.
they had really good quality of sound to them. I thought, and I was only about 12 when I started listening to them. But you sort of pick up on things like that. Don't
Yeah.
you? Quality of sound.
It was just sad loss of the music
Oh,
industry, as far as I'm concerned.
Karen was the drummer, really,
Yeah.
wasn't she?
Yeah.
She didn't want to come and sing, but I think Richard made her come out to the front and sing, and
Yeah.
I'm glad he did.
Yeah, because to be fair,
Yeah.
he's useless.
Piano player. You know.
Yeah, he's all right at playing the instruments,
Yeah.
but certainly not singing.
No.
So when I saw you, first time I saw you was a few months ago.
That's right, at Shevington.
Shevington,
wasn't it?
yeah.
The Methodist Church. Was doing something for was it the old folks or,
Yeah,
or one of
it was
the
a club-
Methodists
Club
meetings?
club called Memories,
Yes.
which meets every first and third Friday of the month. Is that something you do a lot of?
Since I've stopped working, and I qualify that, had it not been for the fact that I was made redundant and COVID, I would probably still be working, but I found that I had more time to do things in the afternoon, because when you're working it's not possible. So I was restricted to evening gigs and fairly local, you know, within an hour's travelling. So,
Yeah.
But since those days, I mean, I thought when I was made redundant that that's one thing I would do, pick up more afternoon gigs. Of course, 3 months later, COVID comes and we're all locked up, you know. So
Yeah.
there was nothing for 2 years or so. But I started getting WIs ringing up, or people recommending me to WIs. If they couldn't do it, they'd pass it on to me. So, you know, then if they were an afternoon gig, you know, or like the Memories thing, it was good. I could go and do it, and I enjoy doing them. I really do, because I can set the songs I do to the group that I'm doing it to. So if there are things, say cotton songs about the cotton industry in Lancashire, which there's a lot, And quite a lot of them were written by people from Victorian times who were part of it. You know, there were weavers and spinners who would write songs, and I always say that the people who wrote the songs, wrote the miserable songs, worked in the industry because
Yeah.
they knew what was going on. The people who were just professional songwriters or didn't work in the industry wrote the happy songs, and there's quite a few examples where you can say that is the case. I'm not saying it is, but that's the way it seems anyway. But yeah, it's so I've as well as doing folk clubs, I've picked up some WIs. In fact, I got one this morning for next November, because it's Lancashire Day is the 27th of November, and these places are looking for people who can do Lancashire songs for them on that sort of day or week, you know. So
Yeah.
come that week, myself and Sid Calderbank, who he lives in Chorley, actually in Exton. We sing together and we do Lancashire stuff, and it goes down well. It's all the same stuff every year, but
Yeah.
we do swap and change. But everybody enjoys it. Well, they haven't said they haven't enjoyed it anyway.
I must admit, growing up, I've had a varied taste of in music. I mean, my personal love is rock
Yeah.
and heavy metal and that kind of
Yeah.
thing. Because even at 4 years old, I was listening to the Sweet,
Right, yeah, yeah.
Gary, the He Who Shall Not Be
He
Named
sure-
anymore,
yes, I know what you mean, yes.
and Slade and things
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
So I've always had the love of
Yeah.
rock music, but I have a very varied collection, very varied taste in music. I mean, growing up, I've been to see the Spinners,
Yeah.
Horton Weavers numerous times.
Right.
There's another one that we went to with mum and dad when I was younger, the Hillsiders.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you
yeah.
remember them.
I do actually. Were they from Liverpool?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been to see quite a few different
Yeah,
people.
there was a lot running around at the time.
Yeah.
I think the Spinners sort of got people going on those sort of songs, you know, and
Yeah.
people would create their own groups. And I think before the Spinners, there was the Ian Campbell folk group, who were very popular in the sort of late 50s and 60s, and people would wait for their LPs coming out and learn all the songs off them.
Yeah. Can't say I've heard
No,
of
you
them.
want it. No, maybe not. Maybe just before your time. But if you look back at what they do on their LPs, you can certainly see where the influence is for other groups who've come
Yeah.
along. Yeah.
So what is it about folk that attracted you more than anything else?
I think it was the case that I was talking earlier on about music in television, certainly for children's programs, and we mentioned Andy Pandy and Bill and Ben, but then you sort of move on a little bit, and then you get to Camberwick Green and Trumpton and Chigley, and every one of those programs had a song in it, at least 3 or 4 songs in it for different people, and because they were repeated on a fairly regular basis, everybody sort of learnt the songs, you know, and I'm sure people can think probably the best one was Windy Miller, you know, Windy Miller,
Yeah.
Windy Miller, sharper than a thorn, like a mouse he's spry and nimble when he grinds the corn, and so on, you know, and there's tunes and things that like Pew Pew Barney McGrew,
Cuthbert Dibble Grub.
And then diddly ding, diddly ding, diddly ding, and so you know they often go with Fireman Bold, you know the tune, and so they sort of get ingrained in your memory after a bit. And then at school you did things like music time and singing together, which I think was a Monday morning. You'd have this pamphlet. This is when I think it was about 10 or 11, and you'd have the wireless on. That was when wireless meant something else.
Yeah.
You'd have the wireless on in the room, which is basically a big speaker that was plugged into the wall. 11 o'clock comes along, Radio 4 or whatever it was, probably the home service in those days, and along would come Singing Together. You'd have this book every term of maybe a dozen songs in, and so every Monday you'd learn a couple of songs, and they'd sort of go on, and then at the end of that particular term, I think you could write in for your favourite song. So again, things like that are ingrained, and Singing Together, when you look at it, were basically folk songs. Then my dad brought home an LP of the Fivepenny Piece. We haven't mentioned them yet. You know, they were another great influence on people. They did sort of a mixture really of pop songs and Lancashire songs, but they did this LP called On Stage from 1974, and my dad wanted to learn a monologue called The Battle of Hastings, and that was on there. So that came back to the house, and I started listening to that, and there's 1 or 2 songs on there that I picked up as well. And if you want, I can do one of those.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a song called Brown Photographs, which, funnily enough, happens to be the title of one of my CDs. So, and I've just got the words here because I've not done it for a long time. But this is Brown Photographs, and I think John Meeks used to introduce it by saying, I remember my grandmother had this box of photographs and they were all brown, and you know, she'd get them out and show them to you. And I've got the same big suitcase full of these things, you know, of your family that probably you've never met, a lot of them. But I'm glad that I had them, because when I did my family tree, I used those photographs on the website. This is Brown Photographs. I've sat on her knee for many an hour, at brown photographs we'd be looking, and she'd tell of the times that she's had in her life, some good, some tears and some laughing. And she'd tell of the times when life was so grand, when the mills were all weaving and spinning, in her bonnet and shawl at the start of each day, to work, to play, then her courting. Her day it was long, most of them hard, they didn't pay much for her working. But when it was done, she always came home to a house that was poor but was loving. And she lives all alone since my grandfather died. She don't have the same joy of living, but she don't mope around, she's always a smile, old-fashioned advice she likes giving. She says times have changed, people have too, they're too busy fighting and grabbing. When she were a lass, well, they hadn't much brass, but were never frightened of giving. And me grandfather's boots are still there by the fire, as if home from the mill he'd be coming. And as evening will draw, then you'll find her alone by the fire, her memories living. I've sat on her knee for many an hour, at brown photographs we'd be looking, and she'd tell of the times that she's had in her life, some good, some poor and some laughing. And she'd tell of the times when life was so grand, when the mill were all weaving and spinning, in her bonnet and shawl at the start of each day, to work, to play, then her courting. I've sat on her knee for many an hour, at brown photographs we'd be looking. Brown Photographs. And that was written by John Meeks, who wrote the tune, and Colin Radcliffe of the Fivepenny Piece. And from there, I sort of picked up other songs as well from people like the Oldham Tinkers, who they had a television program actually on I think it was ITV. It was called Thank You and Good Night, and this was the days, it must have been about 1974, when you had to go to bed at night.
Yeah.
You know, the television didn't go on for 24 hours a day for 200 channels or whatever it is these days. Nothing to watch. So come 11 o'clock, you know, this was a means of getting you all to bed. So they recorded, I think it was Granada, recorded a concert and then put 5 minutes, so it'd be one song or a monologue or something like that on at 11 o'clock, and then it was, well, thank you and good night.
Yeah.
And the first song I heard of the Oldham Tinkers was a song called Signora, or Signora as they called it. And I can do that if you want, but maybe I'll do it a bit later on. But, and then from there it was a case of one thing leads to another. I used to do stuff at school where I'd been learning these songs, and other kids were learning songs by the Spinners mainly, and we did these PTA nights, and on those I got up with a group of people, and we did the songs that I'd learnt and I taught them, and one of the teachers, John Taylor his name was, this was at Ormskirk Grammar School, and John came along afterwards and said, there's an LP you might like. It was this pink LP, pink cover on it, and it was called Deep Lancashire, and it was Harry Boardman, the Oldham Tinkers, Mike Harding, Harvey Kershaw and one or two other people, all singing songs about Lancashire. there's a couple of famous ones on there. The Rotten Stall Annual Fair,
Yeah.
which you may have heard of. Lee Nicholson did that from his memories of it being sung in pubs in Bury. So this was 1968 when this came out. So I started learning some songs off there as well.
Yeah, I like the Horton Weaver's version of Rotten Stall Annual Fair.
Yeah. Funny
A
enough,
little cheekier.
it's a little cheekier. Funnily enough, it actually goes back to 1932, that song. It was written by R.P. Weston and Bert Lee, who were prolific writers in that day. Maybe just on the edge of music hall and variety, that sort of era. Probably goes back to maybe the turn of the 20th century, 19th, 20th century, and then because I think Weston died in about 1936, 37. So that's when their partnership came to an end. But they wrote that song, and it was recorded in 1932 by Randolph Sutton. Right, I wanted to record it on a CD I did called Travelling Tales, and I recorded the version that everybody knows. Down behind. I can't remember how it goes now because I do a different version. Down behind the gasworks, down in Rottenstall, that's a little town in Lancashire.
Da da da.
Yeah. I recorded it, and Bernard Wrigley, bless him, sent me a copy of his latest CD, God's Own Country, I think, or God's Own County, and track 1, Down Behind the Gasworks, down, and I thought, no, I can't do that. So I thought, well, I'll go back to the original, see if I can find it. And what I did, I rang up Rottenstall Library, because on that LP it said Rottenstall Library having 78 of Randolph Sutton singing it, 78 RPM record. So I got in touch with them, and I said, have you got a copy of this 78? Yes, we have, they said. Oh, excellent. Could I listen to it? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm afraid you can't do that. Oh, well, I understand, it's a delicate things, those old 78s, and you don't want to be handling them and breaking them. He said, no, it's not that. He said, nothing to play it on.
That's fair enough.
It is, isn't it? Anyway, what I did, if you troll the internet these days, it's amazing what you can come up with. There's a company called Windy Ridge CDs that get all these old 78s and put them onto vinyl. Or not vinyl, put them onto discs, clean them up and digitise them and put them onto discs. So I managed to get hold of a copy of the Randolph Sutton version, and it's slightly different. I'll do it to you now, and then you'll see how different it is. Just behind the gasworks down in Rottenstall, that's a little town in Lancashire. They'd some fun up there, they did, and all last Friday week they had a fair up there. They had coconut swings and figure-8 switchback robots and a roundabout. He and everyone said what greatly fun when the lads and lassies heard the showman shout. Walk up, come and see the fat girl, 40 stone of loveliness and every bit her own. Oh, what a picture with the accent on the pig. Farmers with their walking sticks kept giving her a dig, but the great little lassie didn't say that her chassis had been blown up with gas, I do declare. She really looked lovely until a silly clown stuck a pin in her, said the showman with a frown. All hands to the pump, lads, the vessel's going down at the Rottenstall Annual Fair. Walk up, see the house of mystery. Ladies pay a tanner and be tickled in the dark. In went the women saying, hey, but this is cheap. Showman pulled a lever and they all fell in a heap. Through a hole they shot, and when they got to the bottom there were frills and flounces everywhere. The girls started screaming, it caused a lot of strife. I never saw so many legs and stockings in my life. I saw some funny things I'd only seen upon the wife at the Rottenstall Annual Fair. Walk up, come and see the mermaid, all her life alive and half a woman, half a fish. In went the fellas just to show it wasn't swank. Little Johnny Higgins poured some whiskey in the tank. Well, she got so frisky when she swam in the whiskey, and the first time she come up for air, she bumped in the audience, gave her tail a swish. Her tail tumbled off and she really looked delish. She shouted, what's your fancy, lads, a bit of meat or fish at the Rottenstall Annual Fair? Walk up, come and get your money's worth. See the tattooed lady with the pictures on her skin. In went the fellas and they all began to cheer, to see upon her skin were all the towns of Lancashire. On her form so pretty she had Manchester City with the town all stuck up in the square. She'd bake up Bolton, Ashton under Line. The coal pits at Wigan I thought were very fine, but they all started singing, Daddy, Don't go down the mine at the Rotten Stall Annual Fair. So you see how different that is
Yeah.
from the one everybody knows from 1968. Funnily enough, I did that on the CD. My dad looked at the sleeve notes and he's reading it and he's saying, "Oh, Randolph Sutton, your grandmother knew him," because they were both from the same area, Clifton, around Bristol. So the things you want to ask your grandparents when they're no longer here, you know.
Exactly.
You know, I could have asked her all sorts of stuff. Found a picture of somebody in talking about photographs, going through all the photographs that we had, and my auntie, because I was doing my family tree at the time, my auntie was going through all these things, and she said, there's a chap there called, I think he's called Clapham, and he did a radio programme, and they were sort of variety stars of the time, and I'd never heard of him. So what I did, I wrote to Jimmy Perry, you know, of Dad's Army fame, because I knew he was into the sort of variety acts and things like that. So I sent him a copy of this photograph and a bit of text about what I was after, you know, and he rang me up. We got a phone call from him. "Hello, it's Jimmy Perry here," he says. He spoke like that. I'm fascinated by your photograph of Charlie Clapham, his name is, and he used to sing or perform with a chap called Bill Dwyer. And I thought it was Leslie Dwyer from, you know, Heidi High, because he used to be the Punch and Judy man, Leslie Dwyer, who hated children. But no, it's Bill Dwyer, different person altogether. And we had a good chat actually about things. And I was asking him about, he did a program called the Old Boy Network, which was something that he got these people together who did also, they were famous on the stage, you know, for years and years, but it was before television. So there might have been a bit of film, a couple of minutes of Pathé News film of them, but there was nothing on their a video or anything like that. So what he did was get them in a theatre somewhere and record with a full audience, record their act or talking about themselves and what they did. And I was interested. I said, "It's a shame we can't see that again, because it would be nice to see it." And another thing he did was Turns, which again he was showing the films of people from the Pathé News days and wherever. He said, "Can I ask how old you are?" I said, "Well, I think I was about 37 at the time." And he said, "37. I think it's wonderful that somebody of your age is interested in this, because it's going to be lost, you know, and it will be eventually, you know, because you can't get hold of these things. The BBC have archives of them, but you know, you can't see them. Although having said that, YouTube is a wonderful thing, and somebody has actually put the Old Boy Network, or some of them anyway, on YouTube. So it's fascinating."
You're saying BBC as an archive. They did have if you remember, they had a policy of getting rid of
a
lot of things.
It was a case of, well, you know, we've shown it once. Who's going to see it again? Or it was a union thing as well, where they were only allowed to have one repeat, and then they had to renegotiate the rights for people who were appearing in that thing. So it was a case of, well, we're not going to spend money on doing that when we can make new programmes for, well, probably less than what we have to show them for. And so they had a policy of going through the archives, and if it was on videotape and it wasn't of any interest, then they'd wipe it and reuse the tape. What did happen though was they had a thing called telecine, and they used to record the output from the television screen onto film, and that was for selling abroad, because overseas they didn't have PAL 625 line colour or 405 line or whatever, so that it was easier to sell them a film of whatever programme it was, Doctor Who or Steptoe and Son, whichever, rather than try and give them a videotape of the same programme, which they probably wouldn't be able to play. And so there's all these videotapes. The videotapes were white, but they still had the film. So that's where today we get all the old Doctor Who's that have survived. There's still a lot that haven't, but I think there's about 80 odd that haven't, 80 episodes. But Steptoe and Son, Till Death Us Do Part, and The Likely Lads, I think, was another one, and all sorts of things that have been found in various places over the years. So that archive is being built up again, which is good. But it is a shame that they were junked in the first place.
I know. So, question I ask every one of the guests I've had so far: when you're not performing
Yep.
or away from folk, what do you enjoy doing?
That's a good question. That I don't really do I don't really do a lot away from folk these days. It's I mean, it was working or singing. That was the thing. I like the garden. So I've got quite a big garden, but I don't do a lot in it. But I like to keep it come the weather and everything. I like to keep it tidy. So there's that. We've been going to theatres and concerts. Went to see who did we go and see? Rick Wakeman the other day. He was I think it's his final tour that he's doing now, because he said when he got to 77 or whatever age he's coming up to, he was going to stop. And he had a band with him, so he was doing Yes numbers, and I think he did Journey to the Centre of the Earth as well, the full thing, because when they released it, they only had about 36 minutes on the LP, so a lot of it had to be jumped, but he did the full hour or so, maybe hour and 10 minutes, which is very interesting to listen to. So we've been to all sorts of things. It's not me really, it's Maggie who likes these things, so I just go along. So we've been to see Rick Wakeman a couple of times, Yes a few times, the Moody Blues, the Eagles, been to see them a few times. In fact, one night I got somebody ringing up saying, "Can you come and do this folk club?" I said, "How much?" And he said what it was. Oh right, okay. And we had tickets that night for the Eagles, so I had to miss out on the Eagles. But Maggie found somebody else to go with us. So it wasn't a lost ticket.
Yeah.
It wasn't a lost ticket. But that's the sort of thing. The other thing I'm involved with is the Friends of the Library. A few years ago, Parbold Library, along with other libraries, closed. The council decided that they didn't have enough money to keep them going, so they closed them. And we did various things to try and keep them open. We had concerts at Parbold, and also somebody at I think it was Oswald Twistle Library had a night or an afternoon where a few of us got together and got people in, but sadly they closed, but Parbold, along with one or two others I think now, have opened again a couple of years later. And when that happened, a few of us got together and said, well, we should form a friends group to try and raise the profile of the library, get people in there. So first Thursday of every month we try and have somebody coming in to give us a talk. Might be an author, it might be somebody like Sid Calderback giving us something about Lancashire dialect, and they always seem to be popular, and like I say, it gets people in. But the libraries themselves do their best to have events and things going on. I think this Thursday at Parbold there's somebody giving a talk about his artistry, and I think he does poetry as well. So there's things going on. So the libraries are now, they're not just full of books that you can go and take out. There's other things going on as well. They have bounce and rhyme for the kids on the Friday, and there's a poetry group, there's a book reading group. So that's what's happening. It's being really well used now, and fingers crossed it'll stay open.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's the sort of thing I get up to.
I know friends with a few authors, so if you're looking for anybody, I can always pass on details.
We always want somebody to come and have a talk with them, and we give them a donation. Or we haven't got that much money, and occasionally we have events through the year that will raise money. One of them, we had a literary quiz for a couple of times in the last couple of years. That went down really well, and you think, oh, I don't know anything about books, but when the questions come out, you think, oh, I know that. So it's surprising what you do know about. What else have we had? Lancashire Nights. Me and Sid have done a Lancashire Night on November, round about the 27th, depending which Thursday night. Because a Thursday night, the library's open later anyway, so they let us in. The staff go home. They keep us. We stay there and tidy up at the end and lock up. They trust us with that, so we build up funds that way. And what we do is we buy things for the library that the council, it's not in their remit to provide. So they will keep the building open, they will pay the staff and pay the heating bills and all the rest of it. But what they don't do, they won't buy chairs. So there are some chairs in there, but if we have an event, we want more chairs. So we bought 30 plastic chairs that fold up, fit in the cupboard. So when we have an event, they can come out. What else have we bought? Well, jugs and things like that to put tea and coffee and milk in. Hot water and cups. We bought 30 odd cups, which again they wouldn't provide. So and various other things. I think we bought an A-frame notice board for outside, like a chalkboard. Somebody, they can put on whatever's going on and then wipe it off when that's finished. So again, the council wouldn't have bought that. So that's what we do, and it's going well.
Yeah, brilliant. I've been to a couple of library events.
Yeah.
One I can actually, but this is over in Harrogate.
Yeah.
With one of my author friends. So he does what they call noir events.
Right.
So it's all like crime,
Yeah.
fiction, things like that. But one of the events he did was to do with a short story he wrote,
Okay.
to do with the end of the war,
Yeah.
called The Penultimate Man.
Right.
And he did a whole thing about that at Harrogate
that was
Library.
interesting.
That was, and they did that round. Remembrance Day.
Yeah.
I almost forgot what it was called then.
I have to remember it's called Remembrance
Yeah.
Day.
Yeah, I'll pass his details over to you.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, we're always looking for
I'll
somebody.
pass your details over to him because I've got your
Yeah.
business card anyway,
Yeah.
so I can.
Yeah, we're always looking
Do
for
that.
somebody to. We're booked up now, I think, for the next few months anyway. Certainly into next year. So.
I know he lives in Orrell, so
Oh, that's no problem. Yeah.
so he's fairly local to us.
Yeah. Well, some people come for nothing, and some people come for a donation. So it's we can't afford a lot. Put it that way. So,
And he's been a guest here as well. So,
Has he? Oh, well.
yeah, he's been here a few times, so I'm trying to get him back as well.
yeah. Good.
Now, speaking of hospital radio,
Yes.
you've taken a new endeavour.
Uh-huh. Yes, you know Diane, don't you, at
Yes.
Wrightington? I've known her for a long time. She used to put alarms in. She still does. But she used to work for somewhere in Wigan. And they put our alarm in. And she also used to be the vice chair at Wigan Sea Cadets at one time. My dad was the commanding officer there, as was my sister. When my dad had to retire from that. And Diane said to me, "Mark, you're interested in folk music, aren't you? We're looking for a folk show on the Wrightington Hospital Radio, Wrightington, Wigan and Lee Radio." I said, "Yeah, I could do that." But at the time I was a little bit busy, so I never really got into doing anything. And then I found I wasn't busy, and I said, "Well, go on, let's get on with this." And then, so I've got loads of CDs and LPs and cassettes, of folk music. So it's just a case of going through them and seeing what I could put together as a show. And she wanted a 2-hour show, so I did something for her just to listen to, so she knew what I was sounded like and what the show sounded like. And she came round one day, sat in front of the computer, and I switched it on. And 2 hours later, well, it wasn't 2 because I flicked through the songs, but she said, "Yeah, that's I can't find any fault with that. So when can you start?" So I actually do them pre-recorded.
Yeah.
I don't go into the studio, so it gives me a chance to put them together and put the voice in between, the talking bits. And I don't know how you do your programs, but what I will do, I'll get a song on the computer. I will look up that song and see what it's about. If I don't know, and I will talk about it. So there might be some historical interest. That's the other thing with folk music. A lot of the songs are historical interest.
Oh yeah.
So I'll put some information. I won't go on too long because I'm a bit like Columbo. It's just one more thing. If you remember that. So I will say a bit about the song, and then maybe I'll put 2 together, and then I'll say a bit about one before and one after. She gave me a load of jingles that I got to put in, and so I've been putting 2-hour shows together, and they are like 1 hour each. 1 hour files, so I've got to get 2 files together to put on the system. I don't know why, but that's the way it is. So I've done about 21 shows so far. They haven't all been played because for some reason they've played the first one twice. They only started a few weeks ago, but they played the first one twice for some reason. I don't know, but I've got there's plenty there on the system to play. So they go out on Tuesday nights at 8 o'clock, and it's wwlradio.co.uk. And if you go on to that. There's like a listen now button on the top right hand side of the website.
And I do Tuesday afternoons,
Yeah, so there you
2
go.
till 5.
So you go. Us two together, you know. So yeah, I've been enjoying that. It's been good, and I've been going through all my CD collections, and I haven't mined anything out of my LPs yet because I've still got plenty of stuff to look at on CDs. I've spent ages digitising them, you know, just shove them in the computer and digitise.
Yeah.
One thing I found with folk music is that if you're not careful, you get a track list and all it says is track 1, track 2, track 3 and so on. You don't get any information about who is it and what's the song, so you've got to make sure you've got the CD there and you sit there typing away trying to fill in all the information. Because there's some people I would like to play, and I say track 1, I sat there pressing the thing listening to, yeah, I'll have that one, so you type in the name of the song and so at least you know what it is.
Yeah.
But no, it's been good fun doing that. Whether I'd do it live or not, I don't know. I have done live radio in the past. Chorley FM, which is no longer with us, I believe. Jamie Blatchley, who ran that folk show, he's had me on quite a few times, either as a guest or I've put some shows together for him and been in the studio while he's been twiddling all the knobs. But it's been my show, if you like.
Yeah.
He puts all the adverts and jingles and things in. Certainly when it was Lancashire Day, I did a programme about that. It's good fun doing that. The first radio show I did was for Red Rose Radio in Preston, and the guy on the folk show there, he sort of put a call out for people to come into the studio to record some songs to play on the show, and I did that. I went along to Preston to the church there. I think it was St Peter's at Preston, which was an old church that developed into a studio. Did the recording, and he said, right, there's a few more people going to record and then we'll start playing them, you know, on the show. Anyway, I was listening, and I think they played Scold's Bridle for one week and then nothing. And I rang him up and said, well, what's going on here? Why aren't we playing the... Oh, I've lost the tape. I bet he's put it down somewhere and somebody's come along and just picked it up, put it in the tape bin, and they've reused it or something like that, instead of saying do not use or a sticker on it or something like that. I mean, these were the days before digital, you know, so you had to put it on tape. Alan Beswick was part of that setup as well. I think he was a producer of the show. He's retired now with... because he's getting on a bit, I think. Because he went on to GMR, was it, or BBC Radio Manchester?
Something like that, yeah.
Doing his evening shows. He had this talking show, didn't he? I remember listening to it once, and there was some guy or some woman on there who was really getting agitated and upset, and I think he talked them round, you know, into not doing anything silly. So that was his moment of glory, I think.
Yeah.
You know, with the whole program, he wasn't thinking, sorry, I've got to go, you know, you've got to go. He kept him talking and kept him. He could have been the Samaritans that night.
Yeah. I mean, his show was quite controversial at some stages, but
yes.
you know, he did have his moments.
2 or 3 like that.
You've also done TV.
A little bit, yes. It's I had John Howarth of the Oldham Tinkers rang me up, and when John rings you up, it's hello Mark, it's John Howarth here, Oldham Tinkers. You know who it is. I've had somebody on, he says, a producer, and they want to know if I do this song, and we do this song. And I said, I don't, but I know somebody who does. And can I give you details to their producer, the producer of the program? Yes, of course you can, no problem. Anyway, this producer rang me up, and they wanted a song about the great flood that happened in Manchester in 1872, I think it was. And there's torrential downfall of rain through the Medlock Valley. You know where the Etihad Stadium is now? Well, across the road from the Etihad Stadium is St Philip's Park, the big cemetery there. The rain was coming down, the River Medlock was overflowing, and there's so much water that it uprooted bodies and coffins and things from this cemetery, and they started floating off down the Mersey, because that's the river that's close to it. and people wrote a song about it. They did recover quite a few of the bodies and rebury them, but they wanted to talk about this event because they were doing a programme called Britain's Most Extreme Weather, and that was with Alex Beresford, who was the weatherman on ITV. I think he was on Good Morning Britain or whatever it was called, the ITV one. So we went along to this pub in Stockport somewhere, and upstairs, and they said, when I spoke to the producer, they said, well, can you bring a band with you? Well, I don't play with a band. So I said, I'll see what I can do. So I got a couple of mates together. We went down there. They mic'd us all up. I had words all over the place because there was about a 9-verse song, and I didn't realise at the time they only used like 4 lines of it or something like that, but I had words all over the place. So I'm there singing this song. I actually recited it, and the guys played the tune behind it. So we were about 3 hours doing that, and Alex Beresford did his bit as well. And when it came to the show itself on air, it was like 90 seconds, which is the way it goes.
Yes.
And the other one that again, I think it was John Howard, said, do you know a song about the Kersal Moor, the meeting at Kersal Moor in 1832, and this was with the Chartists, who were fighting for equal rights with voting and things like that. It was for men at the time, but it was a case of if you had land and money, you voted. If you didn't, you didn't vote. So they were trying to get votes for all, certainly all men. And again, there's a song about the meeting at Kersal Moor, and this was part of a thing called The Real Mill with Tony Robinson, which was like a follow-up to a drama documentary they showed called The Mill, which was at Stile in Cheshire, to Corrybank. And this was Tony's programme was, or Sir Tony as he is now, it was like seeing what was actually going on at the time politically in those times, so they would show you what was going on in the mill, but there was other things going on politically as well, and Tony Robinson was telling us about the Chartist movement for this particular programme. And so again, went down to this pub in Macclesfield. There's a bit of a theme coming here, with pubs. So it's, and sat there with him, and they had the lights on. One set of lights nearly collapsed on top of me, so that would have been interesting. And it's like I brought a load of books with me, with all these songs in of the time, and they were looking at the books and saying, "Oh, let's have a look. I can't. No, we can't show that one. Copyright reasons. We can't show that." In the end, I had a sheaf of papers with me, with stuff that I'd printed out. Is it all right if I just have these? Yeah, that's fine. No. So I had them on the table, and when Tony said, "Are there any more songs about?" Oh yes, I said, and I reached around to this table, brought this. There's this one here I can show you. It's just printed tape. Nothing fancy, just a typed sheet of paper with a song on it. So I did that song, and that was the song I did with on the show. I also recorded another one called A Piecer's Tale, which was from 1832, which is the same sort of period, when they were trying to get the hours of men and of women and children down from like 14 or 16 down to 10. Now, can you imagine working 10 hours a day these days? 6 or 7, and you're going home, aren't you?
Yeah.
Those days it was 14, 15 hours. It was like mill and bed, and that's all it was.
Yeah.
So I recorded this song anyway, and I give Tony Robinson his due. He stayed in the room while we recorded it, and he was really taken by the song, but they didn't have time to play it, so never got played on the television. But I did that little bit of song, and again it was like 3 hours recording it. Because what they'll do is they have one camera pointing at me, and then they'll say, right, that's it. I say, oh, can I go now? I knew what was coming. Can I go? No, stay there. Because then they've put the camera around the other side over Tony Robinson's shoulder and pointing at, or over my shoulder pointing at him. So you're asking the question about 3 or 4 times for different camera angles. And again, it was like 90 seconds on screen. It's good fun doing it anyway.
Yeah,
But,
apparently.
yeah.
I know my YouTube channel that I have about 3 or 4 cameras, and I'm just switching between one
Yeah.
so one another when I'm editing. So I know what it's
I mean, these days, I mean, cameras. We've got this one here, which is a tiny little handheld thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But again, they use even smaller ones on television these days, not the huge cameras that they used to use, you know, which in studios, which you had a job taking them out anywhere.
Oh, definitely. Right, you're listening to me, Stevie B. It's the Hive here at Chorley Hospital Radio. We have a special guest in this afternoon. It's Mr. Mark Dowding, talking about folk, doing a few songs. When I say talking about folk, I don't mean talking about people. I mean talking about folk music, and singing a few songs, and very knowledgeable. You may have guessed.
Time for another song, is it?
I think so. Yes.
All right,
Why not?
okay.
Why not?
Mentioned the Oldham Tinkers on that programme called Thank You and Good Night, and the song they sang, which I heard, and this is Signora, or they called it Signora, and I managed to get hold, again it goes back to about 1910 or something like that, and it's an old variety song, music hall song, and it goes like this. I'm in love with the fairy Signora, for she's such a dear little soul. She thinks that I'm an Italian too, that's why she loves me top hole. Her father he liketh me not, of him I am daily in fear. So I wait till midnight until he's in bed, then I warble this song to me dear. Signora, Signora, are you coming home tonight? Signora, Signora, I'm here in the pale moonlight. If your father's spaghetti won't give his consent, and he says that you can't marry me, I'll start a vendetta, I'll stick my stiletto in a nice little place he will never forget her. Signora, my love, I am waiting anxiously, so slip on your camisola, jump in my gondola, and bunkadoodle-ido with me. Well, the first time I met Miss Signora, she was so busy making ice cream. I said, oh my, and she threw the glad eye, and that started love's young dream. On the freezer we sat making love, she was just warming up to me when the freezer collapsed, she fell in the ice, and ye gods, she was cool to me then. Signora, Signora, are you coming home tonight? Signora, Signora, I'm here in the pale moonlight. If your father's spaghetti won't give his consent, and he says that you can't marry me, I'll start a vendetta, I'll stick my stiletto in a nice little place he will never forget her. Signora, my love, I am waiting anxiously, so slip on your camisola, jump in my gondola, and bunkadoodle-ido with me. Now the father of my sweet Signora has a monkey they call Hitchy-Coo, Hitchy-Coo. I'll never forget the first time that we met, and I think he'll remember it too. She said, let me introduce Dad. 'Twas then the old man got a jar, for I made a mistake. I shook hands with the monkey and then threw some nuts at her pa. Signora, Signora, are you coming home tonight? Signora, Signora, I'm here in the pale moonlight. If your father's spaghetti won't give his consent, and he says that you can't marry me, I'll start a vendetta, I'll stick my stiletto in a nice little place he will never forget her. Signora, my love, I am waiting anxiously, So slip on your camisola, jump in my gondola, and bonk-a-doodle-ido with me. I could see you laughing there.
I am so impressed the fact that you carried on there when I was cooking.
I'm used to it.
Oh, I'll put my microphone back up so you can hear me. I'll say that again. I'm so impressed at the fact that you managed to keep going then when I was cracking up.
Well, I'm used to it. I'm used to it.
Oh, I like these silly songs.
And again, when you talk about folk music, it's not all about, ploughboys and country maidens and things like that. I mean, that song is the song of its day, the sort of 1920s and things like that. Still a folk song to me, written by Billy Merson, who is probably his most famous song was The Spaniard That Blighted My Life. If you've ever heard that one, I usually sing that, and people come up to me and say, "Oh, my granddad loved that song." But again, that's got a bit of a tale to it because he wrote it, and what's his name? I can't think of his name now. I'd say Al Stewart, but it's not Al Stewart. I'll think of it in a minute. Somebody else picked it up and sang it and made it famous, and Billy Merson was thinking, well, where's my royalties? So they had a court case, and unfortunately, because Merson didn't have enough money to carry on, he just lost the case, which was a shame, really.
Yeah.
And I'll think of that guy's name in a minute. Mammy, the guy who did Mammy.
Al Jolson.
Al Jolson, thank you very much. I'm glad you're here. Al Jolson. He had a big hit with it, with Bing Crosby as well.
Yeah.
They did it together.
I probably have heard it, but I just don't
I'll do it in
remember
a bit.
the name.
I'll do it in a bit for you.
So what kind of folk music do you prefer? Do you like the silly ones? Or
It's a bit of both, really. I mean, I like the historical ones because, it tells us what's been going on in the past, and hopefully from that you can learn and take that forward to the future and not make the same mistakes almost. But the funny ones, I always think funny songs you can do maybe once or twice, and then they stop being funny if the same people start hearing them. I also used to do a few by Mike Harding, who did the what did he do? Uncle Joe's Mint Balls, and one or two others from his early days.
Napoleon's Retreat from Wigan. That is brilliant. I can listen to that time and time again.
But when you keep doing them, and you can see people going, "Oh, he's not doing this one again, is he?" But when he does his serious songs like Christmas 1914 and Bomber's Moon, are brilliant songs, and you can do them time and time again.
Yeah, definitely.
People will listen to them. So I like a mixture of stuff, really. I suppose there's nothing favourite. I mean, tonight I'm at Lee Folk Club at the cricket club. I think it starts about 8 o'clock, something like that, and I've got to do that. I've had me instructions, if you like. The audience aren't particularly folky, but I know you can do things like. I mean, I can do things like that. I will do that one, the Signora, and I'll do one or two others. I'll probably do the Spaniard That Blighted My Life, and there's some others. But I'll stick a serious song in as well. You do that to get the contrast.
I mean, the thing is, I think depending on how you do it, folk music works no matter where you are.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big fan of Jethro Tull. Now, they started out as a blues group, went into rock, but they had a couple of albums in the middle there which were like folk rock.
Yes, yeah.
And they were brilliant. I mean, my favourite song is Heavy Horses.
I can't say I've heard that one, but I shall go and listen to that one.
But, I mean, we spoke about this one actually when I first met you, because you were doing one about the Last Train from...
Last Train from Bacup. Yeah.
Now, that one reminded me so much of Heavy Horses. Right. Not for the actual... what's the word I'm looking for? Not for the actual subject matter, but they both dealt with the last steam train?
Last steam trains, yeah.
Well, Heavy Horses was all to do with the decline of using horses for agricultural work when they were bringing the tractors in.
Yeah.
So it's a similar kind of storyline more than anything else. And I must admit, I really do love those kind of songs because they have a really good story to them.
Yeah. My grandfather, my mother's father, he lived up in Hale, which is near Millthorpe in well, it was North Lancashire in those days. I don't know whether it's still Lancashire or Cumbria. It's on that sort of borderline. They had a farm. His dad farmed the area, and when his dad retired, he offered the farm to my granddad. Now, my granddad was a horseman, and tractors were starting to come in, and my granddad wasn't interested. You know, he could see that horses were on the way out as far as agriculture went. You know, because you could plough a field a lot quicker with a tractor, or certainly, you know, they had those static engines that would drag a plough from one end to the other and then back again before tractors were sort of more popular. But, so he was not interested. He sold the farm. I think my great grandmother had a bungalow built or a house built on the edge of the land. It's still there. If you go up the A6 past the King's Head, you'll see that bungalow there, which where she lived for the rest of her days. But he moved down to Parbold because his mate had moved down, and he wrote and said, "There's a job as a cowman going if you want it. Come down." So they moved down, and my mum was moved with them, obviously, because she was about 4 at the time. And they all grew up. My mum met my dad, and here I am. You know, so if it wasn't for me granddad moving down, I wouldn't be here. But that's the same sort of thing that you're talking about, isn't it? People, the end of an era, really.
Exactly.
I've got a song in my head, and it's called "He Was the Last of His Line," or "Last of His Kind." You know, and things like mining and farming in that sense. You know, I haven't written it yet, but it's all in there. I will get it out one day.
No, you can't say things like that. It's just not that.
The song, I mean.
Oh, right, fine, fair enough. Right, off. There is one song that you sang when I first saw you that has had me in stitches listening to it.
Yeah.
Because it was on one of the albums that you gave me, and it was to do with somebody taking a ferret to a.
Oh, right, yes.
That is brilliant.
John Willie's Ferret.
Yes.
I'll do it for you now.
Please.
Yeah. Who needs recorded music?
Exactly.
Yeah. Again, this is the Oldham Tinkers who wrote this. Larry Kearns, and I think Jerry Kearns, his brother, wrote the tune. It's about what happens when somebody takes his pet ferret to an official function, or as we say in these parts, a do. A do. I was there, so were you, the mayor and the vicar and the council too, with the wives and ladies on full view, the night John Willie took his ferret to a do. He slipped his lead with some butter from the sauce, he patterned all the table with his dirty little paws. Oh, said the vicar's wife, this rabbit isn't dead, as he danced a little jig around the hat upon her head. Oh, I was there, so were you, the mayor and the vicar and the council too, with the wives and ladies on full view, the night John Willie took his ferret to a do. He ran round her collar and down the front he tore, he wriggled down her knicker leg and danced upon the floor. Oh, said the vicar, that's a sewer rat, I'm sure. Well, if that's the case, his wife replied, I wish we had some more. I was there, so were you, the mayor and the vicar and the council too, with the wives and ladies on full view, the night John Willie took his ferret to a do. He ran through the soup and he nibbled at the peas, he dribbled all the gravy down the mare's knocky knees. And then he quenched his ferret's thirst with half a pint of shandy, and then relieved his little self in Mrs. Riley's brandy. I was there, so were you, the mayor and the vicar and the council too, with the wives and ladies on full view, the night John Willie took his ferret to a do. Well, the ladies left the tables and began to dance with fright. They shouted out in panic at the little ferret's sight. He nibbled at the stockings and he tickled all the knees, and the vicar's wife kept shouting, give me some of that, please. I was there, so were you, the mayor and the vicar and the council too, with the wives and ladies on full view, the night John Willie took his ferret to a do. He ran up and down the curtains and he swam about the punch. He herded all the ladies in a corner in a bunch. And then to end the escapade he did a little quickie. He ran up the speaker's dinner suit and he nibbled at his collar. I was there, so were you, the mayor and the vicar and the council too, with the wives and ladies on full view, the night John Willie took his ferry to a do. Well, they caught the little fellow and they put him in a box. They give him anaesthetic from the vicar's woolly socks. They sang him Annie Laurie in the mayor's own car, and then they got him back as fast as hell to John Willie's pen. Oh, I was there, so were you, the mayor and the vicar and the council too, with the wives and ladies on full view, the night John Willie took his ferret to a do.
Oh dear, I have to control myself on that one.
I can tell.
I played the CD. I played this on CD.
Right.
My wife Ali, who can't be here today, was listening to it and she was cracking up laughing as well. It's just such silly humour that we don't see these days.
I know.
I mean, it's that kind of humour that's brilliant. It just goes on, and it's
I mean,
just
I don't know whether
cheeky.
it's a true story, that, but it's certainly been dressed up if it wasn't. But I can imagine it happening.
Oh yeah.
You know, in some of these places. You know, you get all these people in their dinner jackets and all the rest of it. You know, posh frocks.
Somebody's going to do
I like
something.
singing
Like
that. I'll tell you why, because there's the verse. I've done it in front of mayors and vicars' wives, and the secretary of the Lancashire Authors Association is Mrs. Olive Riley. So when it comes to that bit in Mrs. Riley's brandy, I always think of her for some reason. I don't know why. But, it always goes down well. You know, sometimes you'll sing it and you'll see people, they won't crack, you know, they won't have a smile or anything on their face, and then you get to the end of the song and they're really on the floor laughing, you know.
yeah.
So, especially Vicar's wives.
Yeah, but I mean, that kind of humour is brilliant. It's what's missing these days, I think.
It is,
It's
yeah,
just
yeah.
something to put a smile on people's face
know.
instead of the misery that.
And it can be a bit
Don't show
risque, you know. It's,
Yeah.
nothing
It,
wrong with
I wouldn't say risque, cheeky.
cheeky. Yeah,
Cheeky,
that's
yeah.
probably a better word for it.
Hmm.
Cheeky.
But
We got things like Jake Thackeray's, who did marvellous songs. I mean, his delivery was, I'll say weird, but you know what I mean. If you're familiar with Jake Thackeray, you know he did things like On Again, which when I do that, I have to sort of say he wanted it, or so I blame somebody else. Then I can do it, because it is you know, maybe these days it's not the sort of song you would sing because of the subject matter. It's about ladies who can't stop talking. Not that I'm suggesting that there are any in this area at all, but you know, in some parts of the world it does happen. You know, it's that phenomenon.
now, it was actually my mother-in-law
Mm.
who got me to come to the memories
All
thing
right.
with her.
Yeah.
So, because she told me about you.
Okay.
She said so. It was her fault that you're here.
All right.
So, Christine, if you're listening, I hope you are. It worked.
What's her name?
Christine
Christine
Rotherham.
Rotherham. Right. No, I don't know. I don't think. So how she knew about me?
I think she's seen you. She's
Oh,
seen you
all right.
before
Maybe she has. I don't know.
a few times.
People come up to me and they say, "Oh, hello, how are you doing?" You know, and I have no idea who they are, because I'm up there and I've got to see your faces, and I don't know any of them. You know, maybe one or two of them, but and then people will come. "Oh, I remember when you were at such a place singing." You know, so I'm glad you enjoyed it. You know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I went in with open mind,
Yeah.
but I've been going with her since. But I've missed the last. I've not
Right.
been this
No.
year yet because things have been happening.
Well,
So
there's
not.
other things to do.
Anyway, giving me time to change the CD.
Right.
I'm going to do a little bit of talking about something that is close to my heart, which
Okay.
is Andy's Man Club. So that's Andy's Man Club on Monday evening, 7 till 9. Every Monday evening, everything is the same nationwide. And when I say every Monday evening, it's every Monday evening except bank holidays. So, as I say, if you need us, we're there. It's not a cure, but it is a tool in the arsenal to get yourself back on a better way of life. So there we are. Right, so that's the CD changed. And
Sounds a very interesting group.
it is. I had a rough time last year when I started.
Yeah.
The Wigan one's only started since 10th of... Sorry, no, not the 10th, the 17th of July.
How do you find out about this?
A friend of mine...
I mean, how did people find out? If anybody wants to go along.
Right, we do... what do you call it? We do stall stands at every now and again at supermarkets, at shopping centres,
Right.
football and rugby matches, that kind of thing. There's the website you can go to, which is just Andy's Man Club.
Okay.
And yeah, it's always, as I say, it's always a safe place for anybody to come and talk if you need it. That's every Monday except bank holidays.
Right.
So there we are. Right.
Shall I do another song for you?
Why not?
Okay. I'll do a song. I did mention it before. It was a song that I recorded for a program called the Mill, or the Real Mill, with Tony Robinson. So I've tuned my guitar down a little bit. And it's about a piecer. Now, piecers were little boys and girls who worked in the mill, and as the spinning frames were running, sometimes the threads would break, and they weren't held together very tightly, but they had to be put together again. And these children would get under the frames. They're still running, they didn't stop anything, they had to get under there. And basically what they used to do is get the thread between their fingers and thumb and just twist it together. It wasn't a case of tying it or anything like that, because it was that loose, as long as it kept going. And these children, anything from 5 years old up, to 8 or something like that, and they had to be nimble and spry and get in and out. And this is a song called A Piecer's Tale, and it's a little child, a little girl, maybe 8, who is talking to the master, which really would never happen. And it's about the 1832, it was written in 1832, and it was about the 10 hours bill that was going through Parliament at the time. There was an MP called Michael Sadler who was trying to put this bill through, and instead of children working sort of 14, 16 hours a day, he wanted them just to work 10 hours a day. Well, I think I said earlier on, we wouldn't think of working 10 hours a day today. Not without a lot of overtime payment, which they didn't get. So this is that tale. I mean, the girl would never speak to the master, but it gives an idea of what was going on. Good master, let a little child, a piecer in your factory, from early morn to dewy eve, relate her simple history. Before I came to work for you, my heart was full of mirth and glee. I played and laughed and ran about, no kitten was so blithe as me. When at the age of 6 years old, poor mother, pressed with want and woe, took me one morning by the hand and said, to factory I must go. They thrust me in and shut the door, amidst rattling wheels and noisy din, and in the frame gate made me stand to learn the trade of piecing in. I often hurt my little hands and made my tender fingers bleed when piecing threads and stopping flies, and I thought 'twas hard indeed. The overlooker passed me often when he cried, an end down there, My little heart, it trembled so, I almost fell with fear. When at the weary evening's close I could not keep myself awake, he sometimes strapped me till I cried, as if my little heart would break. Oh Master, do you know the half that we endure to gain you gold? Your heart might tremble for the day that this sad tale must be told. Ah, then I thought of days gone by, when far from spindle's din and heat I decked my little giddy brow with buttercups and violets sweet. From year to year I sigh in vain for time to play and time to read. We come so soon and leave so late, that nowt we know but mill and bed. They say you pity southern slaves and vow oppressors to restrain, to break the chains of ignorance and Christian principles maintain. The poor we know must work for bread, but Master, are not we too young? Yet if such little ones must work, pray do not work us quite so long. They tell us you grow very rich by little pieces such as me, and that you're going to Parliament to guard our laws and liberty. Oh, when you're there, remember us as in your frames we labour still, and give your best support and aid to Sadler's 10 hours bill. The Beast's Tale.
Ooh.
That's quite a powerful song.
It is, yeah.
You know, when you consider the political machinations going on at the time, that song, the Oldham Tinkers did it, but it appeared in a book called Yorkshire Anthology, so I'm assuming it's from Yorkshire origin, you know, from the woolen mills maybe up there, but because they still had the same people, pieces and kids working in the factories. Like I said, those little children would be so scared of talking to the master, who probably never saw them anyway.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but it's just a way of getting that story across. I think it's a great song.
Yeah, it's quite powerful, and again, with folk music, a good story behind it as well.
Yeah.
So, what do you think of the more modern kind of folk?
Depends what I mean by modern. I mean,
you're talking things like people like Laura Marlin.
See, I've never heard of her. It's, I mean, people, you get these singer-songwriters who tends to be, in my eyes anyway, or my ears, it tends to be, they're just bemoaning their fate to some degree. It's all me, but rather than singing songs about the past, the events that happen. Well, let's talk about modern. When you talk about modern, let's talk about Bob Geldof, right? I do a song of his in folk clubs. I Don't Like Mondays. That is a song about something that happened in 1978, I think it was, 78, 79, in America. A young girl got hold of some high-powered rifle and started loosing off at school children and people coming out of school. When she was asked why did she do it, she said, "I don't like Mondays." And Bob Geldof was sitting in a radio station. There's a teletext machine, the telex machine's always kept so clean as it types to a waiting world. He was actually sat there looking at this teletext machine, typing out what was going on, the news that was coming in of this event. and he wrote this song about it. Later on, he sort of regrets writing it because he said it gave her too much publicity, or it gave her some publicity, you know. It's,
Yeah.
But and again, it's you listen to the Boomtown Rats singing it, and they obviously have the piano on it, you know, and whatever. And I heard Dave Berland sing it in his own way. I'll just do a quick, the first sort of little bit of it. I won't sing the whole song, but. The silicone chip inside her head gets switched to overload. Nobody's gonna go to school today. She's gonna make them stay at home. Daddy doesn't understand it. He always said she was as good as gold. He could see no reasons, 'cause there are no reasons. What reasons do you need to be told? Tell me why I don't like Mondays. Tell me why I don't like Mondays. Tell me why I don't like Mondays. I'm gonna shoot the whole day down. And so it goes on like that. That's Dave Berland. Very different arrangement, you know, way of singing it, which is why I picked up on it.
Well, I suppose anything with a good story could
Yeah.
be translated into folk
It could,
music.
yeah. I mean, that's you know where the old folk songs come from. Cecil Sharp and people like that used to go around at the turn of the 19th, 20th century, going around these places pre-war, pre-First World War, collecting these songs that ploughboys and whoever were singing, and which had probably been handed down through the generations, and then they went off to war. And had they not done that, had Sharp not collected these songs at that point, we'd have lost them.
Yeah.
And we've probably lost a lot more, you know, when you think about it. But yeah, I can listen to singers, you know, of modern songs, but they're almost like pop songs of today. I always think they're a bit not wishy-washy, but I don't really connect with them.
I mean, there is a group called Mumford and Sons, who the majority of them were Laura Merlin's backing group
Right.
when she first started out. And she's been going over 10 years now, I think.
Okay.
And she was one of the what they call London folk scene.
Yeah.
So it was all sorts of like. It's not the same kind of folk that you're talking about, but again, it's not so much. It is more pop-ish influence, but it's not something that would ever, I think, mix well with pop.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
she is.
There's a bit of a line, isn't there?
Yeah.
Sometimes. Yeah.
But I mean, she was one of the ones that actually got me listening to folk music, and then local lass Corrie Shelley.
Oh yeah, I know Corrie. Yeah.
She's been in a few times.
Yeah, she's written some good songs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've seen her, been to see her a few times, and she's been in the studio with us. Not here, unfortunately, but in the other radio station. Well, yeah, she was. She was really the one that actually got me seriously listening to other kind of folk music, apart from obviously the Horton Weavers and the Spinners from when I was a kid.
So they were from the 70s, and Mike Harding as well to some degree. Billy Connolly wasn't so much a folk singer; he was a raconteur, wasn't he? Really, he did the odd song, but nothing.
Well, he wanted to be a folk singer.
He did. Well, he was.
Because
he was with the Humble Bums at one time.
Yeah, he started.
Jerry Rafferty.
Yeah, I was going to say he started out with Jerry Rafferty, and then went into more comedy and then TV presenting. But the songs he does are really good. If you.
Well, he does one. Billy Connolly, Sergeant Where's Mine? Do you know that? I'm asking you, Sergeant, where's mine? I'm sat here in bed, I'm in room 26 and thinking the things that I've done, like counting my medals and bullying my boots, and I can't remember how it goes, but it's that sort of thing. Sergeant, is this the adventure you meant when you put my name down on the line, or you talk of computers and sunshine and skis? I'm asking you, Sergeant, where's mine? You know, that's quite another powerful song.
Yeah.
And there's only 2 or 3 verses, but it's it sort of gives it a lot in that.
there's a lot that goes into folk, a lot more that goes into folk music than you actually think. It's not just a case of picking up a guitar and just
Well, it isn't, no.
clubbing on.
One of the reasons I wished I'd been into folk music about 2 years earlier. Proper, when I say proper, the Oldham Tinkers and people like that. I was doing economic history at school for O level, and it was so boring. It's like my dad said. Teaching history is the passage of words from the page of the teacher to the page of the pupil without going through the brains of either.
Yeah.
Our history teacher, and I'm not knocking history teachers here, but all she did was read what she had in her book, and we wrote it down in our books, and you never really thought about it. And it was a case of, I always remember the Peterloo massacre when that came up. And funny how things stick in your mind. 16th of August 1819, Petersfield in Manchester, a demonstration was stopped by the government. 11 killed, hundreds injured. Full stop. And that's what we did about the. I'm sure there was other things as well around that sentence, but that was the one thing that stuck in my mind, and I'm sure. If I still had my notes with me, I could have gone back and realised what was leading up to it and what happened after it. I don't know if did you ever see the film Peterloo?
No.
It came out 3 or 4 years ago now. Mike Lee produced it, and they got in touch with me. They wanted some songs, and I'd done a CD called Manchester Ballads, which one of the songs was about the Peterloo massacre. Now, they didn't use anything, and I think they only had one song in the whole film. And we went to see it in Liverpool I think it was on the debut. They had a question and answer session afterwards on the video screen, because I think it was in Manchester at the same time. But it was. I was watching it with interest to see where the music would go. They didn't play any music. I think there was one song at the beginning, and that was it. The rest of it was just what happened and the story. And can you imagine 300,000 people? Oh no, it wasn't, about 50 to 100,000 people crowding into an area in Manchester, in the middle of Manchester. This is Peters Fields, which is just round the corner from where the big round central library is. Trying to listen to Henry Hunt, who'd come up from Wiltshire to talk about political reform. It's like somebody standing in the middle of Old Trafford or wherever, big football ground, and he's speaking. There's no microphones or anything like that. And there was a piece in that. Somebody turned around and said, "I can't hear a word he's saying." And then at that point, the militia starts to come in to break it up, to arrest Henry Hunt. But somebody said, you could be in one of Mike Lee's films and not know you're in. He'll have picked something up and he'll use it.
Yeah.
He won't be credited or anything like that. But I hope that the CD I sent them was some sort of inspiration to create some sort of music or whatever for the song they did sing. Yeah.
Hope so.
Yeah.
So
I never actually got me economic history. I got a D, I think, for it in the end, because it was so boring. But later on, I learnt all about the things that were going on through folk songs. There's a song that Harvey Kershaw wrote called Peterloo, which in 6 or 7 verses describes the whole thing. I don't know if I could remember it, but I could have a go. Yeah, let's have a go. If I mess up halfway through, I mess up halfway through.
yeah.
Peterloo. On Peters Fields in Manchester in the year 1819, when the cotton folks of Lancashire in protest did combine, Corn Laws had brought the crippling tax, and the price of food near broke folks' backs, and it set a late to smoulder in flax, and it bristled many a spine. Salute once more these men of yore, who were to conscience true, and gave their blood for the common good on the fields of Peterloo. 16th day of August brought the sound of marching feet, when workers 50,000 strong on Peter's fields did meet. From Mount Street in an upstairs room, the magistrates looked down with gloom, and scoffed this rabble of the loom. Vengeance they thought is sweet. Salute once more these men of yore, who were to conscience true, and gave their blood for the common good on the fields of Peterloo. Then Riot Act was gabbled out at Parson Hayes' command, for this here Rochdale vicar made with the richest living in the land. But folk at meeting never knew of the Riot Act till the bugles blew, and mounted redcoats come in view with sabres in their hands. Salute once more these men of yore, who were to conscience true, and gave their blood for the common good on the fields of Peterloo. These soldiers mowed folk down like flies, their sabres dripped with blood. They gormed them on nor woman's cries, but pierced them where they stood. Mony died that day were named, and hundreds more were hurt and lamed, while the tyrants watching unashamed said it'd do 'em good. Salute once more these men of yore, who were to conscience true, and gave their blood for the common good on the fields of Peterloo. For many a year folk struggled on till 1832. Reform Act come, corn laws were gone, and food were cheaper too. John Bright and Cobden paved the way, and now where Peter's fields once lay, the Free Trade Hall it stands today on the fields of Peterloo. Salute once more these men of yore, who were to conscience true, and gave their blood for the common good on the fields of Peterloo. Peterloo, there you go, I got through it.
I'm going to say I didn't see any fluffs there. Ooh, so,
But like I say, that song sort of tells it all.
again, another story.
Yeah. And you know,
Is that what you think the basis of folk is? Story, just a
I think
storytelling.
it's just stories in in rhyme and music and tune. You know, I suppose nursery rhymes as well. You know, they have a place in folk music. I think. Ring a Ring of Roses tells a story about the plague.
No, it doesn't.
Well, it doesn't, but that's
the myth behind
myth
it.
behind
But yeah.
it. Yeah. Go on then, tell me what it is.
I cannot remember. I do have a
Yeah.
book
Yeah.
that actually goes through
Right.
what the nursery rhymes are. But I cannot for the life remember what it was. It's because it's with Ring Ring of Roses. It says pocket full of posies, which is supposed to be the
That-
rash that you get.
Oh, I've heard
you-
a different thing. A pocket full of posies was to keep the smell.
Sorry, not pocket full of posies. Ring Ring of Roses, pocket full of posies.
At you, we all fall down.
Yeah. There was
There's other verses as well.
Yeah, there is verses with it, and there's something that's supposed to be to symbolise the rashes that you get,
Yeah.
which you didn't get with the Black Plague.
Right.
And you didn't sneeze with the Black Plague, so a tissue didn't mean anything.
No.
So it was something. It was down to something else, and I can't remember what it was.
Yeah. If anybody's out there who knows what it is,
Yeah,
Let us
definitely.
know.
If somebody knows what
Let
the
us
actual
know.
story is, let us know. We would be interested. But there's with nursery rhymes, there's a lot of myths going about what they were originally
I'm sure there
for.
are. I'm sure there are.
But again, they all told a story and they all
Yeah.
symbolised something.
Yeah.
And I think the art of songwriting is to write something for me. Same with art. Now I'm heavily interested in art.
Right.
I go to an art club and that. And for me, modern art is a waste of time.
Yeah.
I don't want to see something that represents something but means nothing. If you're going to paint something, have the decency to paint what it looks like.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, for me, a good song is, where it actually tells something and isn't just a series of nonsense
Yeah.
that's supposed to represent something. Now, I don't know whether you would agree in any.
I'm trying to think of any songs that, probably because I don't listen to them. 'Cause I mean, you listen to all sorts of songs in folk clubs that people come along and give you, because you can't really do anything else unless you get up and go to the bar or something like that. But you know, we have the decency to sit there and listen
Yeah.
and applaud. And if the songwriter's any good, he will tell you what the song's about. You know, without you having to sort of think, what's this about? You know, it might be some experience he's had in the past that has struck him that he wants to write about it, or whatever. You know, or somebody else's. I mean, Jez Lowe, if you know Jez at all, he's from the northeast. He sings a lot or writes a lot of songs, you know, from the coal industry or the coal face.
Yeah.
And other songs that and I'm trying to think of Black Diamonds, you know, talking about coal. It's way down, black diamonds to be found down in the darkness, that's where we abound. And it's way down, black diamonds to be found, shining in the lamplight a mile beneath the ground. You know, he'll sing all sorts of stuff like that. Songs about Galloways, you know, the pit ponies, who most of their life stayed down in the pit. They came up every so often for some fresh air, but not very often.
No.
They were blind, you know, they couldn't see. All sad stuff, really, isn't it, when you think about it? Folk music can be really sad and miserable.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was product of its day, I suppose. I mean, thank God for health and safety and modern rules and working rules.
But again, they didn't come in until probably the 1840s. You know, you start getting the Factory Acts coming in.
Yeah.
You know, before that, you could do anything.
Well, I'm wondering if that's why the style of folk music is changing now, because we don't have that kind of those kind of experiences to fall back on.
Maybe. I mean, the songs, some of the songs I've sang today have been written in that sort of era, you know, 1830s or before even. And there's plenty of people writing about the cotton industry, well, up to modern times, I suppose. There must be a cut-off point of the 60s and 70s, because that's when the cotton industry started to decline. Mike Harding did one called King Cotton, which is basically telling you what it was like, and then the last verse is looking back on it, because it was in decline. And it could have died out even before, but you know, we've got people coming over from India and Pakistan and places like that, keeping it going.
Yeah.
For 10 or 15 years, you know, without them, it would have died a long time ago. So it's the way it is, or the way it was. You know, I mean, these days, where do you go in this country to see a cotton mill in action? I think there's the odd one or two maybe that.
I think it's more for visitors.
Visitors, and they will demonstrate, and maybe make the odd tea towel here and there. But other than that, there's nothing. There's nothing going. It's all India and China, or wherever. Go further east, it's cheaper.
Unfortunately.
I know. Should we go on the canals?
Why not?
Let's have a song about the canals. There's a song called The Bollinger Boatman. It was written by Ian Woods, and it tells a story of a man. It's another story, you see. It's a man's life. And he used to work on the canals up and down the country. His name was Charlie Atkins, and he used to work for Cadbury's at one time. Bourneville, and he used to take the raw materials up and down between the factories called crumb, which is basically ground up chocolate and whatever else was in there, and they would use that to make the chocolate bars. And it was he got Chocolate Charlie as a nickname, which he actually hated. So this is the song. The Bollinger is the engine that used to power the boat. Now I've been a boatman for most of my life. I've travelled the country all through, seen the grouse on the moors around Saddleworth Way, watched trains thunder past out of crew, with me ball in the beating a steady old thump, and the smoke drifting out of the stack. We head through the potteries, then on down south, take a load on and then come on back. I have loaded with pig iron outside Bilston town, and coal out of Bridgewater's mine. I have legged it through Blissworth with 10 ton of salt, and at Northwich dropped boatloads of pine, with me ball in the beating a steady old thump, and the smoke drifting out of the stack. We head through the potteries, then on down south, take a load on and then come on back. I have basked in the sun on the Middlewich run, and I've laid up when weather was wet, been from Bromston to Lim in a wild winter's gale, in order to win a small bet, with me ball in the beating a steady old thump, and the smoke drifting out of the stack. We head through the potteries, then on down south, take a load on and then come on back. I remember the day of the wagon and horse unloading from ships under sail, been from Somerset to London and then on to Goole, and from there I've crossed over to Wales, with me ball in the beating a steady old thump, and the smoke drifting out of the stack. We head through the potteries, then on down south, take a load on and then come on back. Well, I'm turned 80 now and I'm feeling me age, soon it'll be time to go, but till then I will travel, albeit in mind, on the waters that I have loved so, with me ball in the beating a steady old thump, and the smoke drifting out of the stack. We head through the potteries, then on down south, take a load on and then come on back. Yes, we head through the potteries, then on down south, take a load on and then come on back. The Bollinger Boatman.
Doesn't have to be all doom and gloom, does it?
It doesn't, no.
No. Have you tried doing any other type of music other than folk?
I used to play in a big band. I can see you're shocked.
Mm.
Well, I went to this. I used to live in Peterborough. I used to go to this sing around. You know, a load of us would go in a pub, and we'd all sit around, and then somebody would start off, and then it'd be your turn, and then somebody else's turn. It'd go around the room. And the guy who ran that also ran Peterborough Big Band, and they were looking for a guitarist. And somehow he thought I would be okay for that. I went along, and he gave me this pad of music with all the songs that they were singing, or playing. And we had a singer as well, so we had some of the songs. And I'm looking at it, and it's like every beat is really a different chord, so jing 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 sort of thing. And by the time they'd finished, I was on the end of the first, and half the chords I hadn't got a clue what they were anyway. They're all these sharpened ninth, flattened seventh, diminished whatevers, and they're probably quite. Once you got the hang of it, they were, it's just a runs down really and whatever. But I did that for about 12 months, something like that, and it's good fun, and it got me in another direction into music. I mean, I liked the sort of stuff they were playing anyway, but it was nice to sort of be in amongst it and play that sort of music. And some of it I was able to incorporate into what I do now, so you get different. I'll do one in a few minutes, which gives those sort of chords, Unfortunately, I was at work and broke my back. I fell off a ladder, and I keep upping the height every time I tell this, so it's about 100 foot now.
All right.
No, it's about 15 to 20 foot, something like that. I broke my back, and so I was 6 months out of action in hospital and up at Wrightington doing physio when I came back home. And when I went back, I couldn't lift heavy things like my amp or anything like that. So in the end, I just gave it up, and they got somebody else in anyway. So that was bye bye to the big band. But I was interested in that.
I always think of big bands as like Glenn Miller's orchestra and brass and stuff like that. I never think of.
Well, they have a rhythm section,
guitars.
so they have keyboards, drums, bass, and a guitar. So sometimes they'd have a ukulele or something like that.
I never think of guitars with a big band for some reason.
So you've got somebody chonking away with the rhythm.
Yeah.
So it needs to be. People need to keep rhythm. But I enjoyed it, but I couldn't carry on, so it didn't bother.
No dear. Who knows what could have happened?
So what? Sorry.
Who knows what could have happened?
Well, exactly. One's life goes in different. Every step of the way, different turn, depending what happens. I'm getting off philosophical here, but it doesn't. Whatever you do, something will happen, and you'll go a different way than maybe the way you would think you were going to go. It doesn't matter what it is, but it just is. I mean, had I not had that accident, I probably wouldn't be sat here today. I'd be somewhere else, doing something else. It's just the way it is when you think about it.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'd be doing, but I wouldn't be here. Could be anywhere.
Exactly. It's almost as though there's a life path set out for you.
I always think that. It's like falling on your feet.
Yeah.
Something happens, you fall on your feet, and so you pick yourself up and you go that way, and then something else will happen and you fall on your feet. Not everybody, unfortunately, has that luck, but I've been lucky in that sense with whatever I've been doing through my life. I mean, I'm glad that I've been able to do the radio. Without knowing Diane, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Well, having said that, I started radio when I was in Ipswich. I went down to. Well, no, I mentioned about Red Rose Radio at Preston, which never happened. Because they recorded it, but it never got played. I went down to Ipswich with the job, which was putting wires on overhead railways, and I went down to the folk club there. I found the folk club. I knew they had a folk programme on their local radio, so I went down to the studio and I sort of said, "Do you have a radio show, a folk programme?" "Oh, I don't know. Do we have a folk programme?" "Oh, I don't know." I said, I knew they had. "Oh, is it Pete Jennings?" "Oh, Pete Jennings. Yes, Pete Jennings. Is it possible to get in contact with him?" So anyway, cut a long story short, he saw me at the local folk club and said, "Oh, come down to the studio and bring your guitar, and we'll have a bit of a session with some songs and a bit of chat like we're doing now." And I really enjoyed that, apart from the fact when I had my earphones on and all I could hear in my headphones was him queuing up the next record.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, "Oh, she'd shut up." I just carried on. I mean, I've got words. I had words in front of me because letter does it. So I was just concentrating on the words in front of me, and after that, I just said to him, when the microphone was off, I said, "I could hear you do it." "Oh, I'm sorry." He said, "Yeah, you had the wrong fader up or something." We got through it, and I enjoyed that. And the next time I was on, when I was still down there, he said he had this session called 5 Folk Favourites. So you get people to write in and say, what's your 5 folk favourite records? And they would tell him, and if he had them, he would get them together. And I had a load of records with me because I was buying stuff. There was a shop down there, Amberstone Records I think it was called, and it was basically folk music and classical music. So I used to go in there on a Saturday and I'd go through and I'd pick up a handful of LPs every Saturday, only £1 or so each. So I had quite a selection of stuff with me that I could take in. So these are my 5 folk favourites that I could find, and he said, well, bring your guitar in as well, so we'll have some songs from you as well. So it was my show, really. It was good doing that. And then after that, went up to Peterborough. I didn't really get involved. I was well involved in the folk circuit there nearly every day of the week. I think in a fortnight there was one day I wasn't doing anything because they didn't have a folk club on that second Sunday. It was something else went on. Then I moved to Doncaster, and then I moved back over to this neck of the woods. And from there, I sort of got in touch with Stan Ambrose at Radio Merseyside, and I'd put a CD out then, or a tape as it was, and it was Dreams of the Past, and sent it to Stan, and he comes out, interviews you in your house, so he brings his little recorder and his microphone and does an interview with you. Then he takes it back to the studio, cuts it all together to make a programme, and puts the songs in between, so you get this 50 minutes of you. And he did that a few times, but then I'm trying to think. After that, BBC GMR had a programme with Ali O'Brien in Manchester, and I went on there because somebody said, we've got the Four Fools Folk Festival coming up. Mark, can you go in and talk about it? Well, really, I had nothing to do with the festival itself. I used to go to Angie's Folk Club, and Angie ran it with Ken, and that was the first time I went in on to GMR, and it was like this setup. Ali O'Brien was there with the desk and played a few songs of mine. I didn't take my instrument in. I just took a CD or two, and we played a couple of tracks, and then spoke about the festival, who was on, and that sort of thing. And after that, I was on quite a few times, and Jamie Blashley started doing the Chorley FM show. Yeah. So I was doing stuff with them as well. So I've had quite a bit of experience with doing the radio side of it, which I've enjoyed. So, but again, had I not had an accident, I probably wouldn't have been in that position.
Yeah, possibly.
It's surprising how it goes.
So you mentioned your top 5 favourites.
Yeah.
Go on then. What are they?
Oh, I can't remember. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll read some off here, because I brought a list. We were supposed to play quite a few tracks.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason.
Well, technical issues.
Streets of London is one of them.
Yeah.
I always think it's a great song, and it's still relevant today. Unfortunately, it got really slaughtered in the folk clubs. People were playing it very badly. They were playing it every week, and just people got fed up of it. So it sort of fell out of fashion.
Oh, yeah.
So that's one of them. I'll say The Big Hewer. I enjoyed that. The Big Hewer is a song from Ewan MacColl's radio ballads from, I think it was 1961. I may be wrong, but and it was the radio ballads were produced by the BBC. There was Ewan MacColl, Peggy Seeger, and Charles Parker, and they went to communities. In this case, it was the mining communities in the northeast, and they spoke to people and recorded what they had to say. And MacColl, being the brilliant songwriter that he is, would take pieces of what they said and put them into song. And the Big Hewer was one of them. Big Hewer is this like mythical miner who's so big and strong, and he's down there hewing all this coal out. And I recorded that on Dreams of the Past. There, it's the first song. When I did that, when I recorded that song, it was the first one I did, and Chris Pollington, who did the recording, we got so far down, he says, go back to that song and do it again, because you've got yourself into the rhythm of recording now, so you're not as nervous. And we saw that the take on there is the second take. For some reason, it's I don't know what was actually wrong with maybe my voice was a bit nervous. What else have we got in it? There's a song called Boughton's Yard. I'll sing that in a minute. Actually, there's a story that goes with that. Boughton's Yard was in Staley Bridge. It's not there anymore. It's Tesco's. Where Tesco's is. and it was written by Samuel Laycock, who worked in the cotton industry, and he wrote it about this. It was this courtyard of houses. You went into it through a little ginnel, if you know what a ginnel is.
Yes.
Or an entry, or a jigger, depending where you come from. Little passageway, and it opened out into this courtyard of houses. And at each house, somebody lived, And he wrote this poem, as it was at the time. Somebody put a tune to it later on. And there was a rumour going round that this was an inspiration. Somebody had read it or heard the song, and it inspired him to write a television script. And he wrote 13 scripts. And this is 1960, and it's still going today. And that programme's Coronation Street. I had never seen anywhere written down that definitively that was the inspiration. So I wrote to Tony Warren, who was the writer, and he rang me up because I put my phone number on. He rang me up and we had a good chat about it. And the first thing he said was, "I'm sorry, I'm afraid I can't tell you what the inspiration was because I don't know. It's just something that came to me. But thank you for sending the words, because I sent him all 13 verses. He said, I've only heard 4 or 5 verses of this song." And I said, "Oh, how did you manage to see that?" Well, he said, when I was a child actor at the BBC in Manchester in Piccadilly, we would do our bit live, and to shut us all up, all us kids, they got some lady came in and played the piano and some songs and tunes to keep them all quiet. That lady was Violet Carson, who went on to play the hair-netted dragon, Ina Sharples, in Coronation Street. And Boughton's Yard was one of the songs that she played, and he remembered it from those times. So whether something stuck in his mind, because later on, I think on This Is Your Life, when he was on there, it all comes out, oh yes, it was Boughton's Yard, and they played a bit of Ina Sharples or Violet Carson playing it. But then on another version of This Is Your Life, he said, I think it was Cross Street Market or something in Swinton that was the inspiration. So he pays you money and he takes your choice. So I'll do it for you. There's 13 verses. I'll try and do them quickly. So imagine when you listen to this, the people who in Coronation Street who might have been inspired, or Coronation might have been inspired by this song. At number 1 in Boughton's Yard, me granny keeps a school, who has no money scholars yet, who's no but 1 or 2. They send third woman's rear the cross, well, it may be so. I know who's boxed me rarely once and bowed me ears and all. At number 2 lives Widow Burns, who wishes clues for folk. The Billy that's her son gets jobs at Wheeling Cork. This hen who courts with Sam and Eds that lives at number 3. It may be so, I cannot tell, it matters nought to me. At number 3, reet facing Pump, Ned Grimshire keeps a shop. He eccles cakes and gingerbread and traitle beer and pop. He sells oat cakes and all does Ned, he has both soft and hard, and everybody buys off him that lives in Boughton's Yard. And at number 4, Jack Blundrick lives, he goes to mill and waves, and at the weekend when he's time he pows a bit and shaves. He's badly off his Jack, poor lad, he's rather long this end, and his children keep him down a bit, I think they've 9 or 10. And at number 5 I live mysel' without Susanna Grimes, but doesn't like me very well, he turns me out sometimes. And when I'm in there's near no light, I have to cower it dark, and I canna pay me lodging brass because I'm out of work. And at number 6 next door to us and close to side at Spout, out Susie Collins sells small drink, but who's welly allus bout. And how it is as that's the case I'm sure I canna tell, who happen makes it very sweet and sups it all hersel. And at number 7 there's nobody lives, they left it yesterday. Bum bailiffs come and marked the things and took 'em all away. They took 'em in a donkey cart, I know not where they went. Perhaps they'd been and taken and sowed because they owed some rent. And at number 8 the Yorkshire folk, they're only man and wife. I think I near knew kinder souls than these in all me life. You'll never get 'em fine out like lots of married folk. They all seem good-tempered like an handy weird joke. And at number 9 out cobbler lives, stout lad as mends me shoon. He's getting very weak and done, he'll have to leave us soon. He reads his Bible every day and he sings just like a lark. He says he's practising for heaven, he's welly done his work. And at number 10 James Boughton lives his nicest house in Drow. He's allus plenty of summit to eat and lots of brass and all. And when he rides or walks about he's dressed up very fine, but he isn't half as near to heaven as him at number 9. And at number 11 me uncle lives, I call him Uncle Tom. He goes to concerts up and down and plays a kettle drum. He bands the music and such things, he seems to take a pride, and he always makes as big a noise as I place beside. And at number 12 at Thendert Road Joe Stiggins deals in ale. He's sixpenny and fourpenny, dark coloured and he's pale, but I ne'er touch it for I know it's ruin money a bard, and I'm t'only chap as doesn't drink that lives in Boughton's yard. So now I've done I'll say goodbye, I'll leave you for a while. I know I haven't towed me tale in such a first-rate style, but if you're pleased I'm satisfied, I'll ask for no reward for telling you who me neighbours are that live in Boughton's yard. And that was possibly the inspiration for Coronation Street.
Who knows?
I'm going to get something out of my pocket.
Oh, way up.
I always thought when he told me about Violet Carson singing that, wouldn't it be great to be able to hear Violet Carson singing that song?
It would.
It would be absolutely brilliant. And let's have a see. I've got something here that we might be able to. Here we go. Let's have a listen. I know you can hear this.
At number 1 in Boughton's yard, me granny keeps a school. There hasn't many scholars yet, who's not but 1 or 2. They say told woman's rather cross, well, it may be so. I know she boxed me roundly once and pulled me ears and all.
There you go, that's Violet Carson singing Boughton's Yard that Tony Warren heard when he was a child actor.
Well, on my laptop I've got something, a song by Betty Driver.
Oh right, yes.
She was a
Betty Turpin.
Betty Turpin.
She was a 1940s a big band singer, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh yeah. And
I'm trying to think of a song she sang now. Something about the lad with the navy blue eyes or something like that.
yeah, I think something. Yeah. If I had my computer still switched
Yeah.
on, I'd have had a look, but
Right.
I can't now. And what's her face who had the cabin?
Oh,
Barbara
Rita.
Knox.
Barbara Knox.
Yeah, she
was a
she
club
started
singer.
out in the club singers.
Yeah. Oh, that's some. I've come across an LP of Albert Tatlock, Jack
Really?
Howarth. It's called Oh Do, and if you can find it on YouTube,
Mm.
and it's basically him doing monologues and things.
Yeah.
I don't think he did much singing on it, but it's surprising what you find when you look.
I'll have to have a look for that.
Have a look for that one, yeah.
I think.
You can, if you know where to go, you can actually download the soundtrack, so
Hmm.
you don't have to have the LP itself. So yeah, I'm trying to think who else was famous in Coronation Street for doing.
There must have been a few.
Yeah. There's,
Well, obviously, David Jones went on to be in the
Oh, yes,
Monkees.
the Monkees,
Yeah, because he started
yeah.
out in Corrie.
he did. Was he
See.
Ina Sharple's grandson or something?
Annie
Or
Walker's,
was it Annie Walker's grandson?
if I remember right.
Because Peter Noon was also in,
Hmm.
I believe, wasn't he? In
Yeah.
Noon's Hermits, yeah. He might have been Ina Sharple's grandson. I don't know.
I know,
There's
I know
or two
one of them
people.
was. So he's got a lot to answer for.
It is.
Right, now you were saying about the Big Hewer.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh, you're going to play it?
I'm going to actually play it.
All right.
Give me a chance
Give
to...
my voice a rest.
Yeah, give your voice a
Okay.
rest. I'll pick out a couple of tracks and play 3
Okay.
off these CDs you brought in.
All right.
Now, speaking, I was going to say, tell them about the Big Hewer. We have had a folk duo in. Well, they class themselves an acoustic duo called the Hewers,
Right.
but it's spelled Huers,
Yeah.
and it's from Cornwall and
All right. Okay. Yeah.
Devon. Where
yeah.
the Hewers were the ones who looked out to see
Yeah.
where the fish are coming in, and they do a version of Ye Jacobites, which
Oh, right,
I know
okay.
you have on your list,
I do. Yeah.
which was originally written by Robert Burns.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the first time I heard that song was Eddie Reader from Fairground Attraction,
Right.
because she did an album of Burns songs,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
and that was the first time I heard it. And then when I heard their version, I thought, I recognise this from someone. I don't know where. It's only going back to Eddie Reader's album.
Yeah.
Because I played it as as my featured album on the show one week. And then when I saw you done a version of it, I thought, everything seems to be tying in slightly. So,
I'm glad about that.
but it's a really nice song, though.
Yeah.
But I'm presuming that yours will be totally different to the way they do it.
I don't know. I've never heard their version of it. So.
Well,
it's a song that I first sort of came across when I started going to folk clubs because in 1977, because it was a popular song then, and people used to sing it. In fact, Derek Gifford, who I was going to play a song of his, he sang it, and so I picked it up from there. Yeah.
and what I'm going to do next week, if my computer allows,
Yeah.
what you brought in, or what you sent in today, or what you're giving me to play today,
Yeah.
I'll play next week.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
So at least it's not going to waste.
No.
But yeah, I think just to give me a chance to give your voice a break and to get my CDs
Right.
changed over and to change over the camera, I will put a couple of tracks on from the CDs you gave me.
Yeah. That'd be great.
But before I do that, you've done a number of CDs.
Mhm.
I mean, you brought 3 in for me today, and you've
I've
already
got a couple
given me
more
2.
as well,
Yeah. Where can you get them from?
You can get them from me, and if you go on my website, which is www.markdowding.co.uk, it's not quite up to date, but it's everything's on there regarding the CDs, or you can drop me an email at mark@markdowding.co.uk. You might say a tenner on there or 11 quid, but I'm selling them for a £5 now, so I think they're good value for money.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, what I will do, I've got your business card anyway, so I'll do a scan of that.
Right.
I'll post it on the show's
Okay. Yeah.
Facebook page,
Yeah.
and I'm also put it as part of the video that we're doing for my
Right.
YouTube channel
Yep. No, that's fine. Yeah.
as well. So you'll get that as well.
Yeah.
So contact details will be there as well in case anybody would like to book you for an
fingers-
afternoon show or whatever.
Fingers crossed with that. Yeah.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Anything's possible. Right, so the first track we're going to be playing is The Big Hewer.
Right.
And you were saying that's something like the version, or something similar to the American song Big John, I'd imagine.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same sort of thing. Yeah.
So we will start off with that one, and we'll play a couple more when I get some tips on which ones to play.
Down in the dirt and I strange to look at my world through a young laddie's eyes.
And there we are, that was Mark Dowding, 3 tracks from Mark Dowding, which you've been listening to all afternoon. We started off with The Big Hewer, and then The Old Pots, and that one was, I've not got my reading glasses on,
Generations of Change.
Generations of Change. You're listening to me, Stevie B. It's the Beehive here at Charlie Hospital Radio, and as you may be aware, we're joined by Mark Dowding, who's been talking to us all afternoon about folk music and entertaining us with some really cracking songs. So I hope you've enjoyed it this afternoon. We're here now for another 30 minutes. And then if you'd like to see what's going on, you can always go over to my YouTube channel in a few days' time. Well, I'm not sure when this is going to go up on my YouTube channel because I don't have my computer at home at the moment. But we shall get it up as soon as we can on my YouTube channel, which is Spider's Web. And we will you'll be able to see Mark. You'll only see Mark, you won't see me because the camera's only pointing to Mark. But yeah, you can see what he's. You can see.
You can see.
You've got the
and
visuals
hear,
as well as the
yeah.
audio. And my brain has decided now to switch off.
Like computer.
A bit like the computer, yeah.
Yes.
So, we were talking earlier about a song called The Last Train from...
Yes, The Last Train, or Last Train from Bake Up, sometimes it's called.
Yeah.
A very interesting song. Again, looking back at the days of beaching, the
Yeah.
beaching acts, in the 1960s. It was written by Stanley Accrington, which isn't his real name. I do know his real name, but I can't tell you. He won't let anybody.
It's actually Accrington Stanley.
Yeah, yes. And Stan was, amongst other things, he was a station master at Rochdale Station, and he was talking to all the guys who used to work in the old days of steam and telling him stories of those days. And there's this song going through his head, and on his way home one day from Rochdale to Crompton and Shaw, which is a station. Stan always said he never lives in Crompton, he doesn't live in Shaw, so he must live in a place called And. By the time he got home, he'd written this song. And I suppose you want me to sing it, do you?
Oh, go on.
All right.
Go on then.
Just for you.
It doesn't sound anything like this, by the way.
So this is the last train, or the last train from Bacup, and it's all about lines and stations and trains that don't run anymore. There's a line in the fourth verse, measurement halt. The tracks have been lifted. Measurement halt was a real place. It was Alfred Hurst's clock factory, and by clock I don't mean the sort of cuckoo clock type thing on the wall. Anything that measured with dials and things like that, Alfred Hurst would make these instruments. So anything you see with a needle and a pointer or whatever, and that would measure things. I can close my eyes sometimes and still smell the smoke as old Fred the porter slams doors. There's a glance at the clock and a nod to the guard, and the train is in motion once more. Down the Rossendale Valley on a sultry warm day, the clanking of wheels echoes on. But it's all in me mind when I wake up I find that the last train from Bacup has gone. I can stand in the car park remembering old tales of a station that's long since pulled down, of fly-shunted wagons that ran off the rails, ending up in the centre of town. Now the juggernauts carry what's left of the trade, with the cotton bales piled high upon. And where I worked with me mates is now a housing estate, and the last train from Royton has gone. And at 3 in the morning, when I used to sign on, I lie awake half in a dream. I'm a guard on a special that's bound for the coast, with a 460 getting up steam. We've got packages for printers and pigeons to release, spare seats after Haywood not one. Now they jump on a plane for a fortnight in Spain, and the last train to Fleetwood has gone. And at measurement halt, the tracks have been lifted, the platform is all overgrown. There's willow and scrub where the Delft donkey ran, and the valley has claimed back its own. In the Saddleworth Hills on a crisp autumn day, a plume of smoke still lingers on. But I'm dreaming out loud, sure it's only a cloud, and the last train for Dobcross has gone. Down the Rossendale Valley on a sultry warm day, the clanking of wheels echoes on. But it's all in last train from Makeup has gone. Last train.
I like that one. I really do like that one. That's the one that stood out for me.
Yeah.
And I saw you at Shevington. Well, that one and the ferret. Two
That
diff-
one, that one on the ferret, and
No, just that one and the ferret.
yeah,
For two different
Yeah,
ways.
yeah.
The storyline for that is
yeah,
amazing.
it is.
It's sad when you think of how things have changed.
Oh, I know. I'll give you an example now. But the line between Southport and Manchester, which runs through Parbold to Apley Bridge and then on to Wigan, there's a little crossing called Chapel Lane Crossing, which basically serves 3 or 4 houses at the other side of the canal. So you come down from Wood Lane, get to the railway line. You've got to wait there until the crossing keeper can say, yeah, you're safe to go across. He talks to Parbold Box, who says, no, we can't go yet, no, they can't go yet. And you could be waiting 20-30 minutes before it's safe to go, there's no trains coming. So there's a lot of frustration with the drivers, the people who were trying to get across. That's been there for however long the line's been there. There was a guy there was a proper station house. It wasn't a station, but a crossing house, crossing keeper's house. Now it was just a white porter cabin, with the equipment in it to change the signals and do all the bits and pieces that they have to do. But now all that's been taken away, and an automatic crossing has been installed with barriers, so the train will, when it comes along, will trip the barriers to fall down. When it's gone past, they'll trip it again and they'll rise again. So people can go across most of the day now. They'll know when it's safe to go across. But it's another end of an era, shall we say? Which is what that song is all about.
Yeah, as I say,
Yeah.
quite reminiscent.
So the crossing keeper is now redundant. He'll probably go somewhere else. They'll put him somewhere else, but he's no longer required.
As I say, it's sort of like puts me in mind of the Heavy Horses song,
Yeah.
as I was
Oh,
saying
yeah.
earlier,
Yeah.
for the exact same reason. It's the end of an era of losing the horses for tractors, and
Yeah.
now losing the steam trains for
Yeah, for diesel. And
diesel.
electric, yeah. And well, I'm not saying I put the steam trains out to work. I didn't, but part of my job, I think I said earlier on, was putting wires in the air for the electric trains to run, which they're doing. Still carrying on with that.
And in a few years' time, we'll be having songs like that written about petrol and diesel cars
I'm sure we will. Yeah.
being replaced by electric.
Yeah.
Well, so the Potts Railway
Yeah.
that you said you'd wrote that song.
I wrote that. Well, she's not my mother-in-law, but she's my other half's mother. Was at one time a member of the Shrewsbury Railway Heritage Trust. I can never get that right. Shrewsbury Railway Heritage Trust, and they were trying to. They weren't going to rebuild the railway, which was the Abbey Foregate to Llanyminic Railway, which is what the old Potts was. But they were trying to restore the station at Abbey Foregate. There's a big abbey in Shrewsbury, which the station was next door, and try and raise the profile of it. So I was asked if I could write a song about the history of the old Potts Railway as it was, and I was sent a load of information. In the end, I think what I did was look on the BBC website, and there was a very interesting page there that sort of basically told you the story of it from beginning to end. And so I incorporated. I mean, I read what they sent me, and because it sort of made a few facts a bit clearer. But I used the text that I saw on the BBC website to basically write the song. So it started with good intention, but nobody else wanted it. The big 5 railway companies didn't want it, so they had to start on their own. And after a couple of years, basically, it faded away because nobody was using it.
Yeah.
And in the 1940s, like it says in the song, they used part of the line to shunt munitions in and out of Kinnerley, which is in the middle of nowhere, so it was a good place to put munitions without the Germans finding it. But after that, that was it. It faded away again, and there's very little there now. There is a station buildings, and that's about it. But yes, it was interesting to write, and my mate Chris Pollington put the tune to it and the chorus, and we recorded it for them, as well as another dozen or so songs that we gave them to on a CD that we gave them to sell, for their funds. So hopefully they made a little bit of money. I don't think they made lots, to be honest with you, but
Every little helps.
It was something, yeah.
Is that the only song you've wrote? Have you?
I've written odd little bits of things well into the past, but that's really the only proper song I've written. Yeah,
So
I like singing other people's songs.
Yeah.
If there's a catch with them, as in something that I can grab onto that interests me, I will sing it. Sometimes people say to you, "Oh, why don't you sing this song?" And they'll say a song. I can't remember what they were now, but and I'll look at it and no, it doesn't interest me, so I don't bother. Or maybe somebody else sings it, so I'm not going to sing it. If I go to somewhere that somebody else goes and sings it, I won't tread on their toes. It's we're not precious about it, but I don't want people coming up and saying, "Oh, I do that song, so why have you done it?"
Yeah.
I might do it somewhere else, but it can be a bit awkward, it's when you do a song that somebody else does. I'd be a bit annoyed if somebody does a song that I do, but it's the way it is.
So, you were saying you started out. You're saying that you did the more traditional version of Rotten Stone Annual Fair.
Yeah.
Is that what you preferred doing rather than the newer version? You like to bring back the original?
I do like to look at original versions of songs because it's called the folk process. Things change, because people hear things differently, or they misremember and they write down what they think it was, and over the years, or they might write another verse, like has happened in various songs. So over the years, these songs have changed. So it is interesting to go back to what it sounded like originally. Certainly the tune is slightly different, and some of the words are slightly different to the Rotten Stall Annual Fair. It's not even called that, it's called At Rotten Stall Fair. And when you look at the original sheet music or the original track, and that came out of a song that Weston and Lee had written in 1917 called At Somerset Fair. And when you listen to that, I managed to get hold of a 78 of that and some sheet music as well. Amazingly, it's surprising what you can find when you look. I can see where the roots of that Rottenstall Fair came from. It goes down in Somersetshire. We had some wonderful doings last Saturday as the beginning of that song. That was Somerset Fair. We didn't mention a town in particular. I don't know whether they thought Rottenstall was funny, a funny sounding name, but it fitted.
Yeah.
They did have a Rottenstall Fair, so maybe they knew a bit more than that. But they used some of the elements of that Somerset Fair in Rottenstall Fair. Another song that was popular, you might know it from the Horton Weavers singing it, was the Calico Printer's Clerk.
Yeah.
Again, there was a book or a folder called Manchester Ballads that came out in 1983 at Harry Boardman, who was basically Mr. Lancashire when it came to folk music. He got in the 50s and 60s, he researched all these songs and poems and things out of old dusty books and put tunes to them and started singing them, songs about the cotton industry, which we'd probably never have bothered about if it wasn't for Harry. Got together with Roy Palmer, who was an academic more than somebody who performed stuff, and Roy has written all sorts of books in the past, but in 1983 they got together to put a folder of things about Manchester, songs about Manchester that they've dug out from all over the place. Really, they've been to all libraries and other repositories of songs, and they got hundreds of songs that they could choose from, and they whittled it down to 35. And when you look at them, they've put them in chronological order, so it goes from 1700 and something up to the end of the 19th century when the Manchester Ship Canal was opening. One of the songs that they included was the Calico Printer's Clerk, and when it came out, when it became popular in the 60s, there was a group called the Halyard Folk Group, Nick Jones and Dave Moran and one or two others, and they found the words to this song on a broadside, which was basically a printer's sheet that they used to print all these songs on and sell them on the street for a penny or something like that. And somebody collected this in and put them in a library, and they found this sheet. There was no music to it, so they put their own tune to it. And the tune that everybody knows is "She was very fond of dancing, but allow me to remark that one fine day she danced away with the Calico Printer's Clerk." So you know it, don't you?
Yes.
You're singing along with it, as does everybody else. Me and Chris decided we would record all the 35 songs that were in this book, Manchester Ballads. And we came to this song, and the notes in it said, tune traditional as sung by the Spinners. Well, we knew that was a load of rubbish. So we had a bit of a think, and on one ballad sheet where the words were, I think it said something like H&C 75 or a number, something like that. And Chris was well up with this, and he knew H&C were music publishers Hopwood and Crew, and he was able to, that gave him a clue really, and he was able to find somebody who had this original sheet music. So we got hold of that, and lo and behold, there was the music. There was nothing to do with the Halyard Folk Group, what I've just sung. It was written by Harry Clifton, the song, in 1863, and the music was put to it by Charles Coote Jr. Now, it wasn't even called the Calico Printer's Clerk, it was called She Was Very Fond of Dancing, and underneath the subtitle was the Calico Printer's Clerk. So we've been singing it incorrectly all these years. And I'll give you a little bit of the, I'm not going to do the whole song, because but it go on, I'll see what I can do. I'll see what I can do. Tune my guitar up first. In Manchester, that city of cotton twist and twills, lived the subject of me ditty and the cause of all me ills. She was handsome, young and 20, her eyes were azure blue. Admirers she had plenty, her name was Dorothy Drew. She was very fond of dancing, but allow me to remark that one fine day she danced away with the Calico Printer's Clerk. At a private ball I met her in 1863. I never shall forget her, though she proved unkind to me. I was dressed in the pink of fashion, my lavender gloves were new, and then we danced the valse Circassian, myself and Dorothy Drew. She was very fond of dancing, but allow me to remark that one fine day she danced away with the Calico Printer's Clerk. We schottished and we polkaed to the strains the band did play. We waltzed and we mazurkaed till she waltzed me heart away. I whispered in this fashion as round the room we flew, doing the Varsovia, I love you, Dorothy Drew. She was very fond of dancing, but allow me to remark that one fine day she danced away with the Calico Printer's Clerk. For months and months attention unto her I did pay, till with her condescension she led me quite astray. The money I expended I'm ashamed to tell to you, but I'll tell you how it ended with myself and Dorothy Drew. She was very fond of dancing, but allow me to remark that one fine day she danced away with the Calico Printer's Clerk. I I received an intimation she a visit meant to pay unto a near relation who lived some miles away. In a month she'd be returning, I must make a short adieu. But her love for me was burning, deceitful Dorothy Drew. She was very fond of dancing, but allow me to remark that one fine day she danced away with a calico printer's clock. At 9 o'clock next morning to breakfast I sat down. The smile my face adorning was soon turned into a frown. For in the morning paper a paragraph met me view that Jones, a calico printer's clock, had married Miss Dorothy Drew. She was very fond of dancing, but allow me to remark that one fine day she danced away with a calico printer's clock. She was very fond of dancing, but allow me to remark that one fine day she danced away with the calico printer's clock. She was very fond of dancing, also known as the calico printer's clock.
Sounds a lot different to the Hot and Rivers version.
It's very musical, very dance. You can almost imagine. Remember Leonard Sachs on the Good Old
Yes.
Days? Imagine him there, with his gavel. And now, ladies and gentlemen, for your intellectual, he used to all these long words, bang,
Now,
Yeah, so it's a lot different.
now there's a show that should be brought back.
I know.
I don't think ever will be.
No, I don't think it will. I don't know how many exist. There's probably quite a few, but there's one or two older black and white ones that you can find on YouTube.
Yeah, I've seen some of the YouTube ones. The TV series that we had when in the 70s and 80s were
But
brilliant.
they were. A lot of them were just transferred basically from the theatre.
Yeah.
They were just put on television as almost as theatre productions, but and then people started getting clever. But for obvious reasons, they were trying to find something different to do. But again, like we were talking about earlier on, they scrapped a lot of these programs that you'd never get them on again as series. But it's nice to watch them every so often.
Yeah, definitely.
Even if they're just on YouTube or something like that. Just for us oldies, and I use me. I'm an oldie. You're not. To reminisce, and see what we're missing now.
I mean, I remember being. I used to stay at my grand's at a weekend, and I remember them having Wheeltoppers and Shunters Social Club.
Oh yeah.
Well, watched a few of them on.
Ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
Ding ding ding. Colin Crompton. Ding. Can you just pay attention, please? Please don't talk while I'm talking. Wait until the guests are on.
Turns.
Wait until the turns are on. Pies have come,
Yeah. Oh, it cracking series.
Yeah. Again, it was a variety programme,
Yeah.
wasn't it, really? It was, like you had the Valdunik and Sean Siller and whoever else in the 60s and 70s. They had these variety programmes, which you didn't like one act, there'd be another one along in a minute.
Yeah,
Which,
definitely.
And they were there to showcase themselves, really, weren't they?
Yeah. And now it's just showcasing presenters.
Showcasing presenters and things like Britain's Got Talent, which is a misnomer, really. I don't think. Yeah, there are people in there who do have talent, but then they're being judged by people who are looking for something particular.
Yeah.
Not necessarily something that would go well broadly. They're looking for the next number one hit.
And then you've got the pop idol stuff and
Yeah.
things like that, where it's basically not so much X Factor, not looking for the X Factor or something that's good. It's seeing who's got the best emotional backstory.
Yeah.
And feel sorry for me because I've done this and that. And it's ridiculous. Anyway, we're about almost at 4 o'clock.
All right. Okay.
So I think what we should do now is say our farewells.
Well, thank you very
So,
much for having me in.
And
today.
thanks for coming in. It's been an absolute pleasure spending the afternoon with you.
Yeah. Well,
re-
hopefully my voice will recover for me gig this evening.
Fingers
I wasn't
crossed.
expecting to do so many songs. To be
Um,
honest, but,
well, neither was I.
we got through it, didn't we? We got
Yeah.
through it. Yeah.
So it's always a pleasure having someone in who is knowledgeable and has a passion for what they're talking about. And hopefully you've been able to tell from this afternoon that Mark does have a passion for folk music and entertaining. But I think
give my radio show a plug on Wrightington Hospital Radio.
yeah, go on.
Go on, www.radio.co.uk, and that's Tuesdays 8 till 10. You can listen online. You don't have to be admitted to hospital to listen to it. You can go on that page and click on the Listen Live button on the top right hand corner of the page.
There you go. And I do Tuesdays as well, but I'm not doing tomorrow.
Do a different time.
Yeah, I do 2 till 5.
Right.
Show called the Time Warp Church Show. But as I said, that's about it for us this afternoon. So from Mark
Thank you very much. Good night.
and from me, as always, stay safe and take care. God bless and bye for now.